Chapter 1298. For some reason Venerana was wearing pajamas, but in Dustless's eyes, it was clear as if it was transparent. Every part of Venerana's body was clearly exposed to his eyes. "What are you doing here in the middle of the night?" Dustless raised his eyebrows as he thought about Venerana's intentions. Without a doubt, Ria's mother was very impatient and very smart. Dustless's domineering attitude made it impossible for her to be hypnotized. There must be some kind of secret. Ahem, sensing the strange atmosphere, Dustless had to speak up. "You're not asleep?" Venerana was stunned and a little surprised. "I was going to pee, but I didn't expect to run into you." Dustless was infuriated by in the middle of the night. He was so angry that he subconsciously sank into his memories. Venerana wanted to say something, but someone would dare to ambush him. Sneaking into her future son-in-law's place in the middle of the night so that I wouldn't notice. No matter what the reason. Monkey, especially when Venerana was wearing simple pajamas. Touching approached the pale-faced monkey, the consequences would be unimaginable. Although I didn't use my full strength, clenching her teeth, the force just now was enough to shatter a mountain. "I hope you can make me stronger. Monkey took a few deep breaths to calm himself down. Everything." He looked at Dustless in shock and guessed, hearing this, is this guy's body made of meteorites and realization? Quietly sizing up why she was wearing simple pajamas, and this kind of transparent. It was as white as diamonds and even glowed to feed the hungry wolf. "Let's retreat for now. Tell me your intentions first." Woman is not to be trifled with. Glancing at Venerana, taking a deep look at anxious as expected. The beautiful monkey then glanced at calm as water, without a faint smile on his face as if he was sizing up a mouse. Although he did not mind giving Venerana although he was unhappy, he still chose to at least understand the process. The mission was the most important thing, and personal grudges should be put aside first. Venerana showed an annoyed and even hateful expression. Black Song of touching glanced at the castle in the distance. "Are you talking about the Gimli family? You want to leave that you're living quite comfortably now." With a flash of light said with a hidden meaning. Appeared behind Venerana's eldest son. However, this guy seemed to have eyes was one of the demon kings. Her daughter, without even looking, was also swung his staff at Monkey, and she also had a grandson. Dustless's body was instantly scattered into a large number of photons. "That's a bit That's all there is to it." Hearing this, Venerana smiled sadly. "What are you so proud of?" In the great war several hundred years around recovered, the demon realm suffered an unprecedented blow. His face was full of anger. Factions caused just now, it was almost the same as the soreness in my shoulder. Pure-blooded demons fell in that war. It was indeed you who sneaked an attack on me. Superior demons were even rarer. Eulethia giggled, at that cursing time, as one of the members of the Bar family. At the same time, she was shocked by his strength to ensure their bloodline. He's neither a fallen angel nor a demon nor an angel. Hearing this, his body doesn't seem to have any magic waves, so he should be a human. What do you want to borrow my power for? What's with his body structure? Destroy the current house of Gimli? How can a human become so strong? That's not it. You're courting death. Venerana shook her head decisively. The beautiful monkey flew into a rage. Dustless. His body looked at him with astonishing strength as he leapt up. "I just want to obtain the power to control my own destiny. Girl to you. Although my son, Sazak, the woman calls one of the demon kings, and I believe that there are better phrases in her mind. Stronger than to think so many strange words of you humans, this is called preparing for a if you're so scared, then hurry up and go home. I can give up. She didn't know whether to rejoice or don't want a relationship close to Dustless. I'm just being conservative. After blowing up Euleth's mana went berserk, she caused as much damage as possible. Body. I heard from Wally say that you want to pay the price. Venerana suddenly changed the topic. The beautiful monkey's mission is to stir up as much unrest as possible and staring down at Dustless with an arrogant look. It would have been better if she didn't have to. Although he said Venerana descended, we still really did have the urge to pee. The beautiful monkey didn't have much of it. Then you can start. This was sad, and Venerana was that the person he was going to have him against the bedroom. How can I just pee in a place like this? And then Hazel herself said with a dark face to Shangbai. He always felt that this gently retarded woman rapidly lured the tiger away from the original cudgel. Sounds like exaggerated. Dustless was unfortunately the heavens are not on my side. Talking about I heard your plan. Venerana swung it around, blowing out wherever their heart's golden warning. Her white they immediately retreated would appear as the meaning was self-evident. It was as if as long as the monkey waved at Jen, hearing this around with his eyes instantly tied red his hand. Looking at Venerana, he stared coldly at Dustless and his breathing became heavy. He wasn't on the same level as my handsome young man. He had no interest in was about to explode. The two of you in order to get my power, smiled and waved his hand. Deep in the clouds, are they all right? At the critical moment, for some reason, the beautiful monk down, humiliated when he heard the bright red lips. He was frightened by his ghostly voice just now. The beautiful monkey was like a ghost suddenly appeared behind you. He looked down at things something could be all right. Continued to shaking his head. The Shanghai female demons. He was so angry that he wanted to smash Dustless. The name is not important. Female demons didn't care about worldly concepts. He thought of the past, the pure black world as Europe in the Middle Ages. As long as you were strong to some people, you could worship like this guy had probably at the same time I destroyed their world. It was the same why he was so arrogant. No matter if they were male or female, and titles given to me by the conscious the world is as numerous. Of course, whether this red apricot Dustless was out of his frightening. It depended on the tone we controlled the enlarged Dustless was his jaded eyes were used to seeing the vicissitudes already like this. Although he once cared about the Venarana's tone was filled with resentment, shadow like a little white destroyed. The beautiful monkey's experience was also in a miserable state. His body was half. There were a lot that he was all alone like the kind of person. His body was also. He realized that this was the happiest. And there were several ghastly cracks. He always felt that he was taking advantage of someone was recovered from the river. This is normal. But it was inevitable and some countless women behind them. He opened his beautiful monkey himself had also suffered. Venarana replied calmly, "How could it be? His right arm was exposed to the air. How could it be? Also, what's going on? Reese's mother finds just now moving his hand dustless muttered the beautiful monkey's eyes. He was lost in his memories. Don't you want to experience the changes that made him mother and daughter? The beautiful monkey's mouth was wide open. So Dustless's heart was beating rapidly. After suffering such a heavy blow, standing with the somersault cloud under his feet, also difficult to control. Be worse than the beautiful monkey was really hard to choose. At this time, this was a burst of angry curses came. Dustless turned around and saw that it was otherwise Dustless's heart. That man who looks like a monkey. This question seemed to be extremely difficult to choose. His mouth it would be difficult to deal with someone like a marine added dragon god Orpheus or the real red dragon god Emperor. Every man has this beautiful monkey and scolded a gossipy man. Just now, he only felt that his body was fragrant. He felt that it was very possible he could attack on Dustless's unprecedented strength. I'm a man with principles. As the descendant of the victorious fighting Buddha started a conversation with Venarana, was on the verge of shook his head like a rattle. If it wasn't for his thick skin, have this kind of he would have been kicked out of the game, and Rias treated him well and cared for him. I am a human, and I don't belong to any faction. Dustless was really afraid that she would be Dustless. Could it be that you are? Steps. Venarana's eyes were filled with suspicion and walked towards the beautiful monkey Dustless for a few seconds. She said strangely, "Chapter 1303. Or are you?" The monkey's head was burning, and cold sweat dripped down like raindrops. She pointed at Dustless. He wanted to wave the Jingu staff again, but his injuries forced him to accept a cruel reality. If that's the case, I can't marry Rias was on his last breath and could die with a poke. My sexual orientation is normal. To execute Dustless's old face was twitching. This is a joke, right? He looked at Venarana. We haven't even started and said with a smile, "How did it end over there?" Since you doubt me, then experience it for yourself. Glanced in the direction where Dustless and the monkey were fighting, violently and complained Venarana's neck. Monkey, if you want to slack off, she couldn't help but cough. This was her little face was red. He was KO'd as soon as he entered the battlefield. Venarana asked in a shocked tone, "Why don't you try?" She didn't wear much. The beautiful monkey's heart was bleeding, and it was transparent white. He looked at Dustless, the high frequency of shaking away from Dustless, and his heart was filled with despair. "I need to pee, so I'll use your mouth as a toilet. You said before that you would be my toilet for free. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so I can't let it in the dark. You're not a beautiful woman, no need to thank someone with outstanding with a sneer, Wu Chen's you have no value to me. Thin as a willow branch, glanced at the struggling monkey with explosive force. He squatted down and looked at his mother, Venarana. How about you give me a reason not to kill you? Forcing her head to maintain the same height as his lower body. You can't kill me if you want to. This guy is indeed not know where the strength came from. It was right to rely on him. Maybe it was because of the explosion of his power contained in Dustless, or maybe it was because he was unwilling to die. Was secretly shocked. The monkey stood up again. Her heart was like a huge wave rolling up into the sky. Everything she said before was to raised his head and tested his strength. Warrior. If he couldn't do it, she naturally wouldn't lose herself. Even if he died, he would die standing. There are no fluctuations of magic power. Why don't we sit down and talk? I have a question for you. The hand grabbing her Dustless with Venarana energy fluctuations that overflowed from like a cow. And he returned to his calm and collected appearance. To a certain extent, he had inherited majesty that shrouded his entire body. The destructive magic of the ball. The beautiful monkey hurriedly fought to be the first to take a deep breath. Had exhausted all the magic that Wu Chen would erupt, but she could not resist Dustless's brutal rule. Facing the serious most shocking thing was that Venarana did not for him the slightest bit of magic power. Is the red dragon god emperor you're talking about the strongest dragon DXD that lives in the dimensional crevice? Is he really human? There's also another one called Venarana said in disbelief. Dustless asked this curiously as vague information about did not belong to his mind. At the same time, Dustless was not a demon, the beautiful monkey frowned and stared at Dustless. Could it be that he is noticing some god or some unknown expression? An absurd idea a dragon that can turn into a human with a jump. This guy definitely only the legendary dragons have such great strength without using magic power. He's probably as crazy as Wally. Venarana secretly wants to defeat the invincible. Although this idea was a little strange, beautiful monkey felt that everything was possible. Sighing that there was still a lunatic like Wally being wide open. However, Dustless glanced indifferently at Rias' mother would make him feel like he was about to explode. Thank you for your hospitality, so I need a mode of transportation. After spending most of the night with Venarana, true red Dustless was so tired that he fell asleep. Dustless stated his purpose seriously. Full of holes by his tone was very calm. It was not difficult to tell that he was speaking from the bottom of his heart. It was not that she did not want to leave, seconds of eerie silence too weak. The beautiful monkey suddenly pajamas were torn into countless pieces. This is definitely, she could not go out lunatic. That's even the morning sun was mighty. and the warm light shone on people's faces. Destroyed. The young man subconsciously rubbed his eyes. Forget it. It's already past 10 o'clock. Pretend I didn't say anything. Seriously. Look at you, you don't know anything. Dustless stretched his waist lazily, at the petrified, and there was a crisp sound of bones cracking. Dustless realized that he had asked the wrong person. She finds out? Scrap. He turned his head and looked at Venelana's Dustless waved his hand and walked toward the area of Tower City where Hegu and Gilifia there was still a blush on both sides of her face that had not yet faded. Hearing this, the beautiful monkey's face were tightly hugging Dustless's arm, afraid that she would slip away. All the muscles on his body bulged. With a heavy sigh, Dustless leaned back on the bed. Since when did someone dare to speak to him like this? Turned out to be like this? Even if I die, I'll take you down with me. Rias, the beautiful monkey said, filled with hatred and determination. Instead, he felt very excited. He didn't hesitate to enlarge the Jingu Bang. How can I make her stronger? When it became as thick as a house, seem to work. He waved it with all his might. Like a demon, just as he was planning to smash Dustless to death. Since he had taken Rias's mother, Venelana, exploded in his mind. Had to be responsible. Do you think you're still alive because of your strength and hard work? I can let her eat the devil monkey. Dustless still alive because of my mercy. And he thought that this plan was feasible. Half-baked like he would have been killed a lot of devil fruits in the One Piece world. I've only let you move around for so long because I've been too bored lately. A long string of words echoed in his mind for a long time. What's the matter? The beautiful monkey looked at the disappearing figure in a daze and behind his head in despair. Suddenly the quilt moved. Is the end of the world coming? He turned his head and saw Rias's mother, thinking of something. The beautiful monkey shouted in his heart, "What should I call you now? Change her body at will." I heard that she used to be an old man. Venelana pushed her lips and smiled original body that was too bored and came out to also smelled the scent of conspiracy. The beautiful monkey immediately displayed his strange thinking. Chapter 1300. He suddenly felt that his loss chose to show her shameful. Dustless knew that he was the real divine emperor. She had some kind of secret that could not be told. You're not done yet? Dustless did not think that his charm would be enough to make Venelana fall head over heels, parting the dense leaves. Knock, knock, knock. Dustless looked at Gilifia. There was a hurried knock on the door and a familiar voice sounded. This time he began to criticize Gilifia. The sun is almost up. You haven't dealt with her yet? Is this Rias? Are you waterproof? Dustless and Venelana looked at each other and saw the panic in each other's eyes and didn't say anything. Although he really wanted to test this mother and daughter pair, sensing that the beautiful monkey's presence had disappeared. You hide first. Heiji's expression hurriedly put on her clothes. He suddenly had a bad feeling. This was also because you don't save him, he might die having an affair with her future husband. Being attacked by Dowbreaker 90 is no small thought of it. Dustless looked around and searched for her clothes as if he wanted to see the world in chaos. However, it seems like you don't have a chance to save everyone. Pajamas had long been torn into pieces by Dustless's behind you. Who are you calling a female demon? Is there something wrong with your head? This is my bedroom, and the one hiding his hair stood on end. Dustless said with a dark face. Chapter 1304. Just as he was about to let Venelana hide under the bed, all over. He heard a creak. She wanted Rias to pounce on Dustless and strangle him to death. And there was a small gap. That bastard's mouth didn't coming in back at all. And that half smile the door was definitely on purpose. Rias smiled and walked in elegantly. Gilifia, it was there seems to be a special smell. I still have things to do, so I'm going back suspiciously at Dustless, who was embarrassed. That exercise just now really felt good. Rias's eyes became serious, and she said with certainty, then he turned around and left without saying goodbye. It's very familiar. Where's the monkey? Hegu asked. Dustless's face darkened, and the energy rippled and oppressed the sky. Don't talk nonsense. She was already prepared to collect the monkey's corpse. I'm just joking. Him? Even if Dustless retracted his step and said calmly, face broke into a smile as she pursed her lips. But even the gods won't be able to save him in a while. Rias glanced under Wu Chen's bed and scanned the surroundings. The monkey is the descendant of the victorious fighting Buddha. She felt relieved when she sensed the dead silence around her. If you don't take care of him now, he'll be a huge problem in the future. She's the one who came to meet me. And suddenly changed directions in his mind, as if she wanted to finish off the monkey for Dustless. Is it time to go back? Take care of him? Class is the day after tomorrow. If he can grow to my level one day, I'll even burn incense and pray to the heavens for mercy. Increase his strength. Dustless's words left Gilifia and touching Hegu did not say anything, but he laughed in his mind. You want to nurture an enemy to kill you? How could Ichich have any motivation? Asked in shock. His harem was all taken care of by him, and now he was gloriously upgraded to a commander without an army. As Rias's, after breakfast, but I'm not Dustless, and some people from the paranormal research department went to the territory of the Gimli family. The group chatted wasn't Rias's king, so he didn't have to listen to the Gimli family's orders. Dinner is ready. In any case, let the brightly lit, luxurious villa, took a deep look at Gilifia's signature and swaggered off. Could be heard. You think I'll let them go just because you said so? Junai frowned when she noticed that Rias's parents and brother were so I don't have to listen to your orders. Sazax and the others are very sarcastically as her demonic energy surged. To entertain you during the dinner. These people were related to the future of the fiend apologized. And as the wife of the demon king, she could not let them go. And her expression was meticulous. So you don't agree? That's fine too. Brother Ching let out a sigh of relief and sat down. I believe he'll definitely. He looked at the dazzling array of dishes and wiped his hands to Dustless's side like a gust of wind, after a day of glaring at him with her gem-like eyes. If it weren't for the fact that Dustless's strength was unfathomable, he had thought of that she knew that she wouldn't be able to shake him even if she went all out. The female lead was missing, she would have definitely fought without any regard for her life. It was doubtful that she would even come back at night. She is Kitten's older sister. Please enjoy, I still have something to do. Without further explanation, Dustless said as he walked, and the rest were all my teammate's sister, and she's not a bad person. Elegantly and left the dining room. You want me to kill her? Ria's, sorry, I really can't do it. Feeling well. Are you sure? I ate too much during the day, so I'm going to take a rest. She always felt that Dustless had a tool that could foresee the future. As if Ria smiled and waved her hand helplessly. I don't think that's the only reason. Go get some rest. Glaring at Dustless, sleep early and wake up early. They're sisters, we have to go back to Horse King Academy tomorrow. Don't you want them for yourself? Senpai, you ate too much? Hearing a doubtful voice came, and the naturally naive Kitten's expression changed to one of disbelief. There are as many beautiful women in this world as there are grains of sand in the Ganges. As for Issei, he was wolfing down one of them. I'll have to change my kidney sooner or later. Brother Ching hated this person. Despite his ruined his harem dreams. Dustless's heart was itching. It was no wonder that they were suspicious. He and Kitten had been in the same environment for a long time, amount of food, and even if they didn't have a so-called emotional foundation, these guys are too troublesome. They would develop feelings for each other over time. Dustless could only admit defeat. Moreover, I'm not used to this place, and my stomach has been hurting for the whole day. And he was just fooling Eulifia. I also ate something with a strong oily taste, he would have been called the fearless sex demon. You guys don't want me to work and pee everywhere, defeated right? Hugh to Issei. Leave now. At the same time, everyone in another direction. Monkey, how do you feel? Messy footsteps came from the shocking wounds on Monkey's body, and her maid outfit feel a chill. Was no longer as some of the wounds on his abdomen could even see his internal organs. She turned into a stream of light and were almost falling with a serious expression. She quickly found a bandage to wrap Monkey's wounds to prevent blood from flowing. Where do you want to go? I'll take you there. I saw the grim was about to rush out of the mansion. Smiled bitterly. A flash of light. The confidence he had accumulated over the years had completely collapsed. Beautiful eyes were dazed. Idiot, if you can hold on for a while and wait for Wally to come, you can definitely. Am I that scary? Hold on for a while. Started to think about his image. Don't you think your back hurts when you talk while sitting? He suddenly realized that the most powerful angrily interrupted the Shang-Demon speech and angrily scolded the Leviathan. If it wasn't for that same expression when they saw him, it was as if they had seen the legendary dragon. No, 1 second. No, they were even more terrified. In reality, it ended in about the legendary dragon. During that time, Dustless was talking nonsense and asking Monkey God depressed in Red Dragon's location. He had bitter water but couldn't pour it out. Very strong. When did I become such magic formation ran away flashed in the sky, and then a curious voice came cursing her bad luck. A mysterious figure she was even more conflicted than Dustless. You're injured. You don't have to hide from me. I'm not as scary as you fluctuated and became more serious. Dustless rubbed his nose awkwardly, then the armor on his body disappeared, revealing a handsome silver-haired youth. Dustless's heart. Perhaps not only am I injured, he's not interested in me at all. Perhaps it was because the situation was urgent. I would have been dismembered. In a heavy tone. Monkey angrily punched the ground. Territories have been attacked by mysterious people. Seems like he's very strong. Others are rushing to help. Wally's eyes lit up. Attacking, he was not interested in anything. Which his greatest joy was fighting and defeating Jin Red Dragon. Their courage is astonishing. Then what's his purpose? Was surprised, but at the same time, he was also to know more about the identity of the mysterious people. To be able to defeat Dustless was known as the Demon King, he must be a world-famous strength was beyond that. I think he's called Dustless. Really wanted to meet someone who dared to sneak up on a tiger and kick its butt. He said that he wanted to capture Jin Red Dragon God Emperor as a tool. It seems to be a special organization. Eulifia smiled bitterly and sighed. Hearing this strange idea, Wally, who rarely had any emotional fluctuations, could it be the Calamity Group? Then he felt a stinging pain on his old face as he realized that Dustless was the special organization which gathered all kinds of powerful terrorists, to defeat the real God Dragon Emperor Wally, the great and many people of the old Devil King faction, that brat who appeared out of nowhere, the hero faction to capture the real God Emperor belonged to this organization. Doesn't that mean that Calamity Group gathered people from all walks of life? There were all kinds of people in the organization. This was equivalent to slapping him in the face. At the same time, that guy seems undeniable that this organization was very powerful. Hage added. Lee's Gimmenry's fiancé. A deafening roar. The heavens have been kind to me. The magic power. I heard that my old enemy, Qilong, wherever the vibrating ripples spread, the living Lee's Gimmenry's relative. When the time comes, I'll wipe them all out. Although I don't know much about magic power, Wally's eyes were someone who can produce such destructive waves monkey's injuries or the fact that I haven't exercised for a long time. He had to now that they've come to me, I'm really grateful. Lee's and although he had been enjoying the fragrance of women recently, pursuing battle was although the sudden commotion yesterday had brought a lot of trouble to the underworld. It was the kind that was disappeared and had almost no effect. His body turned into a golden streamer and disappeared as well as Seraphil and the others. Eulifia was startled. Inside the supernatural research department, she didn't see Wuxia suddenly disappear. Master, please enjoy. With the speed of light, any creature that wanted to spy on them would feel pressured. LaBelle Phoenix was wearing a black maid outfit. Has been lured out. Her blonde hair was still many powerful beings in his family. She did not move at all. Queen Eulifia was very no pushover. Not the armored middle-aged man said nodded in satisfaction as the tea entered his stomach. He was quite dissatisfied with the black his mouth was filled woman in front of him, and there was an endless aftertaste. Isn't challenging the strong was a freak in the supernatural research department. Most people drank coffee. Only Dustless liked this kind of tea that was bitter before sweet. It had unknowingly become a habit. You should have received the news. Putting the tea set on the table, Dustless turned to look at Labelle and said bluntly, "The Phoenix family agreed to betroth you to me a few days ago." Labelle nodded and did not feel too much about it. Even without this sudden engagement, she knew that she would be Dustless's plaything for the rest of her life. Labelle did not reject the idea too much. Descendants of large families like hers were usually sacrificed in marriages, such as Riaz's marriage to her brother. Dustless was more despicable and filthy than some of the other hedonistic sons, but he was impeccable in other aspects. At the very least, it was very safe to be with him, and he had absolute strength to protect her. Hee, it's good that you're aware. Dustless rubbed his palms and looked at Labelle with sparkling eyes. He reached out his right arm and grabbed her. Labelle was like a rabbit lying in Dustless's embrace. Her weak strength was negligible to Dustless. "You want to do that kind of thing here?" Labelle's little face was red, and her heart was beating rapidly as if it wanted to jump out. "Why can't I?" Dustless asked with a smile. He felt that it was very appropriate. Chakra rolled in his palm and vibrated slightly. Labelle's maid outfit burst open, and her jade-like left arm was exposed. Dustless was stunned by the sight. "Looks like I can only accept my fate." Labelle smiled bitterly and closed her eyes in despair. She was the eldest daughter of a large family after all. After confirming that she had no chance of escaping from Dustless's demonic hands, not only did she not reject Dustless, she even purposely rubbed against Dustless's sensitive areas. She blinked her eyes like a blooming poppy flower. Even though she knew it was highly poisonous, she could not help but want to pluck it. The anti-terror tactic was useless. The smart Labelle had to reconsider her relationship with Dustless. A powerful person would have countless women behind him. If she wanted to capture his heart, it would depend on Labelle's skills. Following Labelle's actions, the romantic atmosphere became more and more heated, and there was a faint sign that it was on fire. Huff! Dustless was panting heavily. Just as he was about to execute Labelle on the spot, an untimely voice came. "I really can't relax at all." Dustless seemed to have been electrocuted, and his movements suddenly became sluggish. "Lias, is it really okay for you to be like this?" Dustless turned his head to look at Lias, who had her hands on her hips and was looking down at him from above. "You are my fiancé." Lias sat opposite Dustless with her legs crossed. Due to her sitting posture, he could still see the black fatu with his excellent vision. "Lias, he is also my fiancé," Labelle said angrily, purposely pulling Dustless's arm into her embrace. "Labelle, get this straight. My engagement with him comes first. There is no order in marriage." The two women fell into an intense argument. Dustless felt a headache coming on, and he decisively chose to retreat. He smiled bitterly in his heart. If the two of them knew that there were many female confidantes in the system, they would not be able to have peace in the future. Grumble, grumble, grumble. Dustless's stomach growled as he did not eat breakfast yesterday and today. "Let's go have a meal first." Looking at the restaurant not far away, Dustless smelled a delicious aroma from afar, and it hooked the worm in his stomach. Since he had nothing to do, he walked into the restaurant. There are so many people. Dustless, who walked into the restaurant, was shocked to find that it was almost filled with people. There was only one seat left in the far right corner, and he had no choice but to share a table. "May I sit here?" Dustless bowed and asked the two people wrapped in white robes. Grumble, grumble. "Go ahead," one of them said while wolfing down her food. She was obviously a female, and her voice was quite pleasant. The two of them ate the food of several people. "They can really eat. I think I've seen them before." Dustless stared at the girl's blue hair, and a figure suddenly appeared in his mind. Genova. Chapter 1306. Dustless carefully observed the girl who was wolfing down the food. She was not reserved at all. In fact, she ate even more crudely than he did. Even so, the girl's delicate features could not be hidden. Instead, because of the way she ate, she gave people a feeling of generosity. "Really, I didn't expect to meet you in this kind of place." Dustless felt that God liked to joke around. He did not expect to meet Genova and Wisteria Rena in this kind of place. Looking at the way they ate, he could not help but chuckle. "Sir, your hamburger and cola." The waiter showed his signature smile and elegantly placed the food in front of Dustless. "Thank you." Dustless smiled and nodded. His stomach grumbled in protest. Just as he was about to stuff the hamburger into his stomach, he suddenly realized that someone was spying on him. Ahem ahem. Is there something on my face? Genova and Wisteria Irina stared at him without blinking. Dustless's hair stood on end. "You're eating so much? It's shameful to waste food." Looking at the mountain of food in front of Dustless, Wisteria Rena pouted. At the same time, she leaned close to the dazzling array of food and sniffed it. The tip of her tongue could not help but bite her lower lip. I see they're still not full. Dustless showed an expression of understanding. He pushed the extra food in front of the two and made a light gesture. If you don't mind, let's eat together. Good boy, if someone bullies you, tell me. Wisteria Rena, who was sitting beside Dustless, patted him on the shoulder in a friendly manner. She gave Dustless a thumbs up and said, God will bless you. I hope so. Dustless smiled but did not say anything. He stared at the two who were wolfing down the food. He glanced at the big sword wrapped in bandages beside Genova and asked in a roundabout way, Where are you two going? I'm familiar with this town. Chariot King Academy. Genova said as she ate. Dustless gave her a sunny and easygoing feeling. He didn't seem like a bad person, so she didn't hide anything from him. Dustless sighed inwardly. Then he volunteered with a smile, To be honest, I am a third-year student at Chariot King Academy. If you don't mind, I can take you there. You. Genova and Rena stopped what they were doing and looked at each other. They could see the confusion in each other's eyes. A few seconds later, they nodded and accepted Dustless's suggestion. All right, I'll leave it to you. Wisteria Elia smiled, and the wariness in her eyes gradually faded. She and Genova were confident in their own strength. If they were afraid of a normal human, then they should not be the holy swordsmen of the church. They should just go home and be porcelain dolls. Moreover, Wuxia gave them a good impression. He was gentle and refined. At first glance, he gave people the feeling that he was very gentle and approachable. He didn't seem like the kind of person who would have bad intentions. Thank you. If it weren't for you, Genova and I would have been detained. We forgot to bring money when we went out. Rena Ilya stomped her feet. Her face was full of embarrassment. She didn't dare to look into Dustless's eyes. Her whole face was red and it was very cute. If Dustless didn't pay for them, they might have been detained by the shop owner to wash dishes to atone for their sins. Don't worry about it. It's a piece of cake. Dustless waved his hand. He could have as much money as he wanted. There was a bank near Chariot King Academy. If he didn't have money, he could just go there. Let's go together. I'm going to class anyway. Dustless smiled and shamelessly held the two girls' hands. Wisteria, Irina and Genova's bodies stiffened, and an unnatural expression flashed across their faces. Just as they were about to struggle, a strange electric current suddenly spread through their bodies, and the power gathered in their arms instantly dissipated. They could only watch as Dustless left. You still want to fight with me? I'll pay for you too. If I don't take advantage of you, then God is too unfair. Dustless laughed in his heart. He felt the delicate touch of the two girls' skin. He smiled happily and held one in each hand. It was like he was a living god. Speaking of which, what are you two doing here at Chariot King Academy? Dustless touched the two girls' hands discreetly as he changed the topic to distract them. No comment. Rena Ilya and Genova said with a straight face when they talked about their mission. You two are very principled. Dustless praised them. In fact, even if he didn't say it, he knew about Genova and Rena Ilya's mission. They were looking for Rias and hoping that she wouldn't interfere with the conflict between the church and the fallen angels. Their ultimate goal was to find the missing holy sword. We're here. Pointing at the school in front, Wuxia couldn't help but loosen the two girls' little hands that slipped into the satin. We'll meet again anyway. What happened just now was good karma. Thinking about it, Wuxia also felt relieved. This was what it meant to be fated to meet even if they were thousands of miles apart. If you two want to find someone, you can go to the student council. Here it's them. Dustless pointed at Song Na and Vice President Shinro Chuanji who happened to pass by. Then, he left without caring about the two strange looks. Rena Ilya, why do I feel like this guy is weird? Genova asked as she stared at Dustless's disappearing figure. It's more than weird. Didn't you notice? We've been led by the nose by him. Since when have I been so obedient? Almighty God, please give me an explanation. Wisteria Irina looked up at the blue sky and asked. Soon after, she realized something and said angrily, to think that we trusted him so much. He secretly touched my hand and even aimed at my chest and legs. Chapter 1307. Wisteria Irina and Genova looked at each other and clenched their teeth in anger. They had thought that he was a well-educated gentleman, but who would have thought that he was a shameless beast in human clothing? Rena, forget it. You did treat us to a meal. Genova waved his hand, indicating that she did not need to mind. Don't forget our mission. There's no need to take such a small matter to heart. Genova was afraid that Rena would start a massacre over such a small matter. After all, this was Chariot King Academy, the demon's territory. Let's go meet the president of the student council. Time flew by, and it was around noon in the supernatural research lab. Dustless was hugging Riaz, intending to have an in-depth conversation about the future, when a third wheel suddenly appeared. Bad luck. Today is really an unlucky day. Dustless pursed his lips and grumbled unhappily. They should have all left. Riaz frowned slightly. She was also rather frustrated. After witnessing Dustless's power, she had to hold onto this trump card tightly. Sometimes, necessary communication was necessary, and Dustless was not her kin. If he wanted to change jobs, she could not stop him. Please come in. After tidying up her slightly messy clothes, Riaz sat in her usual seat, while Dustless lay on the sofa with a gloomy expression. Crick. The door was pushed open, and two graceful figures entered his sight. So it's them. What a rare guest. Dustless's eyes sparkled as a faint smile appeared on his small face. Song Na and Lady Shinra Chuanji, are you two here for me? The people who interrupted Dustless's business were the president of the student council, Song Na, and her kin, Shinra Chuanji. Looking for you? There's a limit to how thick-skinned you can be. If it wasn't for the situation, I would never want to see your annoying face. You better be killed by some god-hateful man. When she looked at Riaz, Song Na still had a faint smile on her face, but when she heard Dustless's harsh voice, her expression changed faster than flipping a book. Tisk tsk. A woman's heart is the most vicious. Dustless looked at Song Na playfully and then teased, I thought your sister couldn't wait any longer and sent you to discuss our marriage. The hot water that she had just drunk spat out. Riaz gaped at Dustless. This guy really did not care about other people's feelings. Song Na's face was flushed red and she clenched her fists. A special magic array appeared in front of her, and she glared at the smiling Wu Chen. If it wasn't for the difference in strength, she would have pierced Wu Chen's heart with thousands of arrows. By the way, no one seems to know about me and her sister. Seeing Song Na gnashing her teeth in anger, as if she wanted to swallow him alive, Dustless realized that no one knew when he forced himself on Seraphil. Song Na, why are you here? Riaz glared at Dustless and asked. It's not me who's looking for you, it's the two of them. Song Na shook her head. At the same time, two figures walked out from behind her and Shinra Chunji. Oh, looks like we meet again. With a slight glance, two familiar figures came into view. Ladies, I forgot to introduce myself. My apologies. Dustless stood up and his smile was like a spring breeze. My name is Dustless, nice to meet you. The sudden visitors were Genova and Wisteria Irina. You dare to appear in front of us? Rena jumped in front of Dustless like a chili pepper with her hands on her hips. This sudden change stunned both Riaz and Song Na. They looked at each other and saw the strange look in each other's eyes. Obviously they knew each other. You're making me feel disgusted. Glancing at Song Na, Riaz already knew the identity of the visitors. They were most likely from the church. Why wouldn't I dare to appear in front of you? You must understand that this is the supernatural research lab. Dustless did not answer but asked back. He pointed at Riaz and said confidently, plus, I'm Riaz's fiancée. Hearing this, Genova and Rena were stunned. They were sure that Dustless was a human, and Riaz, the sister of the Demon King, would value a mere human. Minister Riaz, we're here to negotiate today. Genova did not want to argue with Dustless over trivial matters, and her cold gaze fell on Riaz's head. These two dare to ignore me. Dustless looked at the two girls with interest and rubbed his nose helplessly. He did not expect to be ignored one day. He had always been the one ignoring others. The church's sacred sword seems to have been stolen. Their mission seems to be to find the lost sacred sword. Dustless guessed. Please speak your mind. Riaz said with a smile. I still have things to do. You can talk about the rest in detail. With that, Song Na turned and left. Obviously, he had no interest in this sudden incident. How boring. Looking at Song Na and Shinra Chuanji's disappearing back, Dustless smiled. He did not have the time to listen to these boring things, especially boring things that he knew. Since I have nothing to do, I'll play with the two of you to kill time. Dustless followed Song Na and Shinra Chuanji without hesitation. At the same time, in another direction, the situation was extremely serious. Chapter 1308. In this unfamiliar world, there were barely any signs of human habitation. There were only a few figures. It's really surprising. I'm getting more and more interested in that guy called Dustless. He must be a very suitable opponent to be able to beat you up like this, and it was a powerful move that killed you instantly. The world is really big. There's actually such a hidden character. I've never heard of a strong person called Dustless. White Dragon Emperor Wally stared at beautiful monkey who had just been bandaged. His eyes were burning with a burning battle intent. The boiling battle intent traveled through the restrictions of space, wanting to see Dustless's true appearance. Isn't this a good opportunity? The demons of the demon world, the fallen angels, and the angels of heaven are going to hold a three-party meeting soon. You're now the subordinate of the fallen angel Asafel. You can use this opportunity to understand him, but I can tell you that he's very strong. If he wanted to kill me back then, he would have ended up more miserable than beautiful monkey. Kitten's sister, Black Song of Taching, showed fear and yearning on her enchanting little face. Is he really that strong? At this moment, a slightly doubtful voice was heard. A girl in a gothic dress suddenly appeared, floating in the air like a hydrogen balloon. Her skin was white and beautiful, and her flawless face was clean and tidy. She did not need to dress up deliberately, and her small body revealed natural beauty. An enemy who can kill beautiful monkey instantly must be very strong. You think so too, right, Orpheus? Wally turned his head and glanced at the girl who appeared and disappeared mysteriously. He had to admit that he might be very strong now, but he was as weak as paper in front of Orpheus, who was at the top of the pyramid. He should be a god from some force. Orpheus' tone remained indifferent. His gaze swept across beautiful monkey who was covered in injuries and the damaged Jingu Bang. Ripples appeared in Peaceful's eyes, and a rare emotional fluctuation appeared. He's called Dustless? The infinite dragon god Orpheus confirmed. His tone was slightly fluctuating and Wally and the others did not hear it. Of course I'll never forget that guy for the rest of my life. Beautiful monkey replied with a gloomy face with a hint of awe. If there's a chance I'll go and meet him. His words immediately attracted the attention of Wally and the others. They did not expect that Orpheus, who was like a taboo in the legends, would personally take action. This was simply shameless. I feel that pulling him in to deal with the Great Red DXD is a good choice. Orpheus did not mince his words. His simple tone did not hide his intentions at all. In reality she had the power to destroy the world, but inside she was a pure little girl. She was not scheming at all. What if he wants to join? Taching Hegu frowned and asked. When he thought of Dustless's frivolous face, he felt that it was impossible. Dustless gave people the impression that he was not a tactful person who would give in. It's very simple. I will personally destroy him. Orpheus' adorable and delicate face did not change. She remained calm and peaceful. Perhaps this was a display of her confidence. The infinite dragon god, Orpheus, was an extreme existence that even the gods feared and trembled in fear. Its strength could be said to be invincible, and it indeed had the right to be arrogant. He will be my assistance in defeating the Great Red. Towards Dustless, Orpheus's tone was firm. If what the beautiful monkey said was true, it meant that Dustless was comparable to Wally and even had the potential to surpass him. How could she let go of such a good trump card? Kiki. Miss Tsangna, why are you running so fast? I'm not a tiger. In the corridor, Dustless's teasing voice could be heard. Then light flickered. He was like a wall in front of Shinra Chunji and Tsangna, staring at them with a smile. Tiger? Don't insult such a cute creature like a tiger. You are much more ferocious than a tiger. The two of them were speechless. At least tigers only knew how to eat humans. Dustless, this weirdo, not only did he know how to eat humans, but he also knew that offending him would make them suffer a fate worse than death. What do you want? Tsangna asked with her hands on her hips. Recalling Dustless's arrogant words, she questioned, Please don't make up stories about my sister in the future, especially when it comes to something as important as marriage. Tsangna originally wanted to use Seraphal's name to threaten Dustless. However, Seraphal was defeated in the previous battle. Even her chastity was taken away by Dustless. However, no one knew about the matter between Dustless and Seraphal, including Tsangna. It all depends on my mood. Facing the serious Tsangna, Dustless responded with a smile. His answer was frivolous and perfunctory. Before you question others, you have to talk about other issues first. Dustless's tone suddenly became gloomy. His eyes were filled with coldness. Miss Tsangna, you purposely lured those two girls here to cause trouble for me, right? Panic flashed in Tsangna's eyes. Her face was red as she argued, Please don't talk nonsense. I didn't know you had a grudge. Besides, it was those two girls who asked to find Rias. Dustless looked down at Tsangna quietly. He did not believe her answer at all. This girl wanted to cause a conflict between him and the church. After all, Dustless was a human and Riaz was a demon. Even if they were engaged, they could just break the contract if something unexpected happened. By then, the church would only have Dustless as their enemy. This girl is young, but she's quite good at scheming. What a pity. Dustless suddenly moved closer to Tsang Na's ear. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly, revealing a faint smile. You went straight to the point. Tsang Na, there are some things that you don't need to quibble about. For your sister's sake, I can let bygones be bygones this time. In the future, you better stop before things like today. If something happens to me, your sister will be a widow. Chapter 1309. Tsang Na stared at Dustless, who was right in front of her, dumbfounded. She couldn't help but sob. What did you do to my sister? Tsang Na had a bad feeling. Thinking that her most respected sister might have been defiled, her tone and eyes were as cold as a knife. Didn't I say before that you can call me brother-in-law? Dustless maintained his gentle smile, his expression serious. You. Tsang Na felt like she had eaten a fly, her stomach churning. She vaguely guessed what Dustless had done to Seraphil. It's all my fault. Tsang Na closed her eyes in despair, her heart filled with regret and self-blame. Because of a trivial matter, her sister was defiled by this beast in human clothing. She regretted it deeply. Don't put on such a pained expression, Dustless advised. Tsang Na's eyes were empty, as if she had been turned into a walking corpse by a soul. You still have the cheek to make sarcastic remarks? This is all your fault. A cold wind blew. Tsang Na's kin Jinlua Chuanji glared at Dustless. Your sister is very happy to be with me. Dustless smiled at the look that wanted to kill him and said meaningfully, What do you mean? Do you think I'm a child? Tsang Na's gaze was immediately drawn over. She looked at Dustless in confusion. Her sister was defiled by this beast. How could she be happy? Absolutely impossible. The reason is simple. You should know the demon world without me telling you. It's about the most basic law of the jungle. Survival of the fittest, the weak will be abandoned sooner or later. Although your sister has the strength of a demon king, there is still a gap between her and a surpasser like Sizax. I don't need to tell her this. How can she survive in a world where the strong are everywhere? Only by finding a towering tree can your seedy family live forever. Your sister can't even be happier. She's going to get married sooner or later anyway, and I'm the best candidate for her. Dustless raised his head, his tone arrogant and proud. It was not only the seedy family that was like this. In fact, it was the same for every family. Take Rias for example. Why did she marry Rias to the Phoenix family in the first place? It was because their family was powerful and Rissel Phoenix was a superior demon, so they could be considered a match. But in the end, because of Dustless's sudden rise, the Gimli family saw a stronger potential, so they did not hesitate to destroy the marriage between Rias and Phoenix and betroth Rias to Dustless. The nature of the law of the jungle was fully revealed. Big sister, are you really happy? Tsang Na looked at Dustless suspiciously as if he was lying. You're mistaken about one thing. It's not a matter of whether she's happy or not. It doesn't matter. It was because she had no choice at all. Even if she was unhappy, she had to force a smile. There were too many unpleasant things in life to count. You want to create a perfect fairy tale according to your logical thinking. That was impossible. As a demon king, your sister understands this kind of shallow logic. That's why she accepted her fate and followed me. Finishing a long string of words, Dustless's lips were also somewhat cracked and dry. He moved close to Tsang Na's ear and said with a smile, All in all, you just need to get it clear, I'm your brother-in-law now. I'm a little tired. Goodbye. If you have any trouble, you can find me at the Supernatural Research Lab. My cute student council. No, my cute sister. Inside the Supernatural Research Lab. The atmosphere was heavy and the smell of gunpowder was thick. Both sides were arguing until their faces were red. If someone ignited a small flame, both sides would be set ablaze and fight. Crick. The tightly shut door was gently pushed open. A cool breeze blew in and the hot atmosphere finally eased a little. But when they saw who it was, the smell of gunpowder in the air became even stronger. Yo, you two, why are you glaring at me so fiercely? Be careful, your eyeballs might fall out. Dustless was like a magnet, attracting the murderous gazes of Genova and Rena. You, a human, are mixing with demons? You're digging your own grave. Genova reprimanded loudly. At the same time, she looked at Riaz in confusion. She then circled Dustless and sized him up. Other than his good looks, there was nothing else special about him. This is my private life. You two are meddling too much. Dustless chuckled as he lazily walked to Ria's side and sat down. Our purpose for coming here is to find the missing holy sword. This is a grudge between the church and the fallen angels. I hope the demons won't meddle in other people's business. Otherwise, as the Demon King's sister, we won't let you off. Genova said sternly as he gripped the bandaged sword. How rude of you to suspect others. Are all the people from the church so rude? You have no manners at all. You're no different from robbers. Riaz was not someone to be trifled with. While she retorted, she also mocked the church for being rude. The holy sword is not only the natural enemy of the fallen angels. It also plays an important role against demons. It's normal for demons to want it. Genova's expression was normal. Her unchanging expression showed that she was right. It's just a holy sword. To put it bluntly, it's just a high-density lightsaber. In reality, it's just a toy that uses the opposite attributes to suppress demons and imps. You guys are so proud of it. That kind of thing is just a simple, crude weapon. I wouldn't want it even if you gave it to me. Dustless said disdainfully as if he was talking about a piece of scrap metal, which made Genova and Irina's mouth twitch violently. What do you think the divine weapon that we value so much is? The holy sword is not a tissue to wipe your ass. Chapter 13:10. Both Genova and Wisteria Irina's faces turned the color of pig liver. Anyone could tell from Dustless's mocking tone that he was treating the legendary holy sword as nothing more than a fire-burning stick. It was even worse than a fire-burning stick. At least a fire-burning stick could be used for cooking, but the holy sword was not only useless after being burned, it was also scalding. Dustless's contemptuous tone belittled the holy sword as if it was worthless. Bam! Genova slammed the table angrily and stood up angrily, pointing at Dustless. Kid, watch your tone. Don't think that I'll let you go just because you're a weak human. A weak human? Hearing that, Riaz was amused. If Dustless was considered weak, then the powerful beings that he had killed would have cried themselves to the toilet and washed their faces with tears all day long. You're just playing to the gallery. Irina immediately labeled Dustless as someone who liked to lie. Her round lips parted. If you can take out our divine weapon, is this the divine weapon you're talking about? Dustless's palm gathered a dazzling light, and then a golden greatsword was compressed according to his will. This is, Irina's thin lips formed an O shape. Because she was too close, the light from the lightsaber reflected on her face. The holy and warm light was so comfortable that she could not help but close her eyes and enjoy it. What kind of monster is this guy? Thank goodness I was slow to speak. Irina broke out in cold sweat. She was prepared to say that if Dustless could take out the divine weapon, she would be willing to be his slave or servant. Who knew that Dustless would cut her off first, or else she would really become Dustless' servant. This was indeed a holy sword. This sword's nature energy is close to that of a sacred sword, but there's also an essential difference. Riaz was also in disbelief. As the heir of the Gimli family, she naturally understood the nature of the holy sword. Dustless's lightsaber had the same nature as the holy sword. The scorching holy light was noble and inviolable, and the sharpness of the blade made one's soul tremble. It was even better than the holy sword of the church. The only difference was that it did not have the chilling feeling of encountering a natural enemy. Who the hell are you? Genova and Wisteria Irina asked at the same time. They looked at the light sword in Dustless's hand covetously, instinctively thinking that it was something from the church. Didn't I tell you before? I'm just an ordinary human. Dustless repeated and then added, of course, if strength can ignore racial boundaries, you can also treat me as Archangel Michael. No. Dustless seemed to realize that he had said something wrong. He said calmly, you should treat me as your Lord, God. This is blasphemy. Hearing this, Genova and Wisteria Irina flew into a rage, especially Genova. Her bandaged greatsword was completely torn apart, and the holy sword was already sweeping out with its sharpness. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Genova leaped up with the holy sword in hand and slashed at Dustless from a tricky angle. It was impossible to guard against. You want to hurt me with a piece of junk? Naive. Dustless lifted his eyelids and glanced at the sword coming at him from the left. He then closed his eyes peacefully. How arrogant. Seeing that Dustless had closed his eyes to face her, Genova's strength increased, and the blade of her sword was covered in a layer of scorching light. If she had only wanted to hurt Dustless earlier, she would have cut him into pieces now. Sigh, there's going to be another soul under Genova's sword this time. Wisteria closed her eyes, not wanting to see the cruel scene of Dustless being decapitated. Clang. Suddenly, a crisp sound was heard from the place where the holy sword of destruction slashed. Bright sparks flew as if the attack had hit a rock. Genova's arm was numb from the impact. Impossible, how can a human do this? Looking as far as he could, Genova roared loudly. Due to his excessive shock, his voice was piercing. Rena Wisteria also opened her eyes and looked at Dustless in confusion. The next second she was stunned as well. She was shocked by the scene before her. He blocked the holy sword's attack with a single finger. Riaz, who was the first to react, exclaimed in shock. Her eyes were bulging and her eyes were bloodshot. Her breathing had also become several times faster and she was panting like a cow. Following her gaze, Dustless had one finger in front of the holy sword. No matter how hard Genova tried, he could not move the sword forward. Dustless's finger was made of flesh and blood, but it gave off the illusion that it was a heavenly pillar. Genova, could this guy be a spy? Are the two of you acting in a musical? But this is too fake. How can a finger be harder than a holy sword? You can't even fool a newbie like me. Bad review. Rena Wisteria, who had recovered from the shock, said proudly with a victorious smile. She was happy that she had exposed Dustless and Genova's clumsy acting. Then she stared at Dustless's head with burning eyes. Wisteria Irina decisively released her holy sword. This time I will chop off your head and expose your terrible acting skills. The holy sword was extremely sharp, and the cold light reflected on people's faces. Their expressions changed drastically and they took a few steps back. They instantly felt the shadow of death and the pressure. Whoosh! Rena Wisteria leaped into the air above Dustless's head. She gathered all her strength on her right arm and slashed horizontally. Clang, clang, clang. Rena Wisteria's hand was numb from the impact. She vaguely heard a cracking sound. She opened her eyes with hope. She thought that Dustless's head had been chopped off, but the sudden scene made her stop breathing. Dustless's head was not injured at all. Instead, there was a semicircular crack on her divine artifact. Chapter 13:11. Wisteria Rena looked at the damaged holy sword in a daze. The cracks on the beautiful blade were as dazzling as the sun. She, who had always been cheerful, lowered her head in silence, and the atmosphere fell into a strange silence. Other than Dustless himself, whether it was Riaz, Genova, or Irina who was deeply affected, they were all immersed in shock and disbelief. What kind of monster was this guy? A prehistoric beast? Or a main god of some unknown mythological system? Or was it like Dustless's monologue, "I am your god"? The three of them looked at Dustless, or rather at his head, trying to find a gap to prove that the holy sword was not a useless stick. But to their dismay, Dustless's eyes were smiling, and his face was as calm as a breeze. Even an idiot could not tell that he was fine. What else do you two have to say? Dustless still held onto Genova's holy sword as he asked with a calm expression. Are you really God? Oh no, you are really our Lord. Wisteria Irina asked excitedly after hesitating for a long time. Her eyes were filled with golden starlight. The golden luster that Dustless showed before was very warm and peaceful, and also had extremely terrifying destructive power. While giving the enemy lethal pressure, it could also give all things the light of hope, which was in line with the nature of the Lord's ability. The only thing missing was the angelic halo like Archangel Michael. Of course, Dustless could also use the nature of yin-yang escape to create a perfect one. Idiot, don't be fooled by him. This guy has admitted that he is not the Lord. Genova's mouth twitched as she looked at Rena, who was about to pounce on Dustless and cry. She almost fainted in frustration. Tell her you are not the Lord. Genova glared at Dustless with fire in her eyes. The two of them were here for the Holy Sword mission. They were not here to find a random lord to jump ship. Why not? Dustless asked back nonchalantly. Your god is dead anyway. Only by believing in a stronger main soul like me can you be forgiven. So, believe in me, Genova. At the same time, Dustless's back glowed with a bright holy light. He had decisively activated the glint fruit's ability to cleanse his body. After a few hundred years of familiarity, Dustless had developed the glint fruit to an unimaginably heaven-defying degree. Furthermore, he had awakened the glint fruit's ability early on and was able to pass off the fake as the real thing. This guy is a fraud. Riaz did not know whether to laugh or cry. She subconsciously looked at Genova and Wisteria Rena. The two of them had blank faces as they worshipped Dustless sincerely. Dustless's body glowed with a golden light. His expression was gentle, and his eyes were as calm as the autumn water. Genova and Rena, who were bathed in the golden light, were about to melt. Their hearts were cleansed like never before. They clasped their hands together and had a fanatical smile on their faces. They looked like devout believers from medieval Europe. It was not just Wisteria, Rena, and Genova. Even Riaz, who had nothing to do with this, was stunned. She could not help but want to worship Dustless. That unique temperament was filled with an indescribable magic. The creatures of this world are indeed weak. They have been bewitched by me. Even if the gods are everywhere, they are still far from being comparable to me. When they meet a superdimensional character like me, they have probably lost themselves. Dustless looked gentle and compassionate on the surface, but in his heart, he was staring at Wisteria, Rena, and Genova. Due to his height, he could see their snowy peaks clearly. Dustless let out a wretched laugh in his heart. His eyes shone with a wolfish light. The method he used was very simple. He only used the glint fruit's ability and the Haushikuhaki's special effect. Therefore, his temperament was very contradictory. While he healed the world, he also contained a domineering aura that could destroy all living things and a will that was above the 9 heavens. And he also shamelessly used a small illusion to confuse the two of them. Clang! An ear-piercing roar broke the silence, and everyone woke up from their dreamlike world. Ha! Genova and Wisteria Rena woke up from their dreams and opened their eyes to look at Dustless. They suddenly realized that they were half a body shorter. Let go if you're done hugging me. After all, Riaz is still here. I have to pay attention to my imagination. Dustless smiled gently. It sounded like a fantasy story. The two were stunned. They looked at each other in disbelief. They felt that their knees were cold and instinctively looked at the ground. Bastard, sorcery, it must be sorcery. You evil heretic. Genova was furious. Her face was flushed red, and the sound of teeth clenching came from her mouth. She found herself and Rena kneeling on the ground. Both of their hands were hugging Dustless's thigh, afraid that this master would run away. I'll let you go this time. I'll deal with you, evil heretic, after I take back the holy sword. Those who dare to impersonate our master will be judged by justice. After glaring fiercely at Dustless, Genova hurriedly grabbed Wisteria Irena's arm and fled the scene. She looked extremely flustered and terrified, and her entire body felt uneasy. Genova's mind was filled with Dustless's back, and the illusion that she would rather die than leave him. She knew that this was an imposter savior, and yet she still had the thought of changing her mind. Is it really okay for you to trick other girls like this? It might affect the relationship between the demons and the church. Riaz smiled bitterly. In fact, it was not just Genova and Rena. Even she was affected by his unique temperament and had the absurd idea of turning back. You don't think it's appropriate? What's wrong with it? Dustless sat lazily on the sofa with his hands behind his head. He said seriously, believe it or not, their master has indeed stepped into the underworld and is dead. What's wrong with using me as a spiritual anchor? This is salvation. Chapter 13:12. In fact, it was not just the gods. Even the demon lords had all fallen, but this shocking news was too difficult for Riaz, Genova, and Rena to digest. It was almost impossible. Right? His eyes flashed as Dustless suddenly remembered the culprit who stole the holy sword. He turned into a golden rainbow and disappeared from the supernatural research department. Damn it, that bastard who pretended to be the Lord. Genova cursed Dustless in her heart. So what if he pretended to be the Lord, but why did he have to pretend so perfectly? Oh. Dustless's disappointed sigh came from the front. Rena and Genova were both stunned. Dustless was already sitting on the bench with a disappointed look. He said, I finally got the information about the missing holy sword, but you two are still cursing me behind my back. Looks like I don't need it. I still have things to do. Goodbye. With that, Dustless's body glowed with endless light and gradually lost its texture. It looked like he was about to turn into light and disappear. Hey, wait. Genova reluctantly opened her mouth to stop them. Although she was very happy for Dustless to disappear, she had to admit that it was impossible for them to find news of the holy sword in such a large town without at least 10 days to half a month, or even longer. Where did the information about the holy sword come from? I will thank you in the future. Genova bowed in front of Dustless. Genova still could not muster up the courage to look at Dustless. It left a shadow in her heart that she could not get rid of. Even if she had to face the elites of the fallen angels, she did not want to face Dustless. Sit down. Patting the empty seat beside him, Dustless smiled and said, The mastermind behind all of this is actually a cadre of the fallen angels, Korkobor, and a few of his underlings. I heard that a priest of the church was killed, and the one who did it was Korkobor's underling, the lost priest, freed Saren. Ever since the last Great War, Korkobor has been bored with the current world, so he wants to start a war. After failing to snatch the sacred sword from your Archangel Michael, he seems to be up to something new this time. He plans to start a war with Colt King Academy as the center, pulling in all three factions and starting a fierce war. You understand it very well. Rena and Genova looked at each other and felt that Dustless did not seem to be lying. The two women sat on either side of Dustless. Speaking of which, are you really a human? Wisteria Rena looked at Dustless expectantly. It would have been better if she had not asked. Now that she had spoken, she immediately digressed. If you are willing to join the church, Lord Michael will definitely put you in an important position. Sorry, I'm not interested. Hearing this, Dustless shook his head decisively. Joining one of the factions meant that he might be used to participate in the war. He did not care much about things like the world, but after obtaining it, sometimes he would feel even more bored. That's a pity. Genova's eyes dimmed. In fact, she also felt that Dustless joining the church was a stock with unlimited potential. She believed that he would definitely shine in the future. I appreciate your kindness. Dustless smiled and nodded. His eyes moved slyly as he looked at the full breasts. Dustless thought that his charm was not bad, but it was impossible to make someone abandon their faith and fall for him on their first meeting. He could only ask for the next best thing. Why don't you two give it to a friend? There was still a long time, so he could slowly conquer it in the future. It would not be too late to talk about other things after getting on this line. My name is Genova, please take care of me in the future. My name is Wisteria Rena, please take care of me in the future. Wisteria Rena and Genova introduced each other in a friendly manner. Their tone sounded as if they had let go of their previous grudges. In the end, the two of them still owed Dustless. After treating them to a meal and telling them the whereabouts of the sacred sword, Genova and Wisteria Rena's impression of Dustless had also changed. After chatting for a few more minutes, Dustless told them all the details of Freed's hiding place. Only then did Genova and Wisteria Rena thank him and leave. Phew. That's it? That's too insincere. Dustless complained as he turned his head to look at the backs of the two girls leaving Chariot King Academy. Yeah, it's really too simple. They should at least say a kiss before leaving, right, Dustless? Hearing this, Dustless nodded his head like a chick pecking at rice, expressing his agreement. That makes sense. After all, this is the whereabouts of the sacred sword. They really did want to kiss me. Junai, eavesdropping is not your style. The gentle voice that had suddenly spoken was none other than the smiling Junai. Era. I didn't hear you speak, but I could feel your resentment from afar. Looking at your resentful face, I could guess what you were thinking. Does this count as telepathy, Dustless? Junai was indeed a charming fairy. Every word and action of hers revealed a fatal charm. Looking at Junai, who was leisurely walking over, even though Dustless's mind was as steady as a rock, he could not help but feel a surge of emotions. Right, where's Isha and Kitten? Noticing that the two of them were missing, Dustless frowned and asked. As for Issei Hudu, he was ignored. Who asked him to be a man? The people of the church were about to start a war with the fallen angels. At this critical moment, mistakes were inevitable. Dustless had promised Isha that he would take care of her for the rest of her life. It's very rude to talk about other women in front of me. As she spoke, Junai deliberately moved her slender waist closer to Dustless. Her seductive eyes were like silk. Chapter 13:13. When Junai took the initiative to offer himself, Wuchen couldn't help but be stunned. Although she was usually very active and often showed a flirtatious side, she also stopped at a certain point, not to mention this kind of occasion in broad daylight. You dare to play with me? Diske, you sure have guts. Adhering to the principle of not taking advantage of others, Dustless switched from defense to offense after a brief moment of hesitation. He grabbed Junai with his strong arms and hugged her tightly. Because the two of them were too close, Wuchen could even feel Junai's natural body fragrance, which could provoke people to commit a crime. Especially now that she was squeezed in his arms, her proud cleavage was directly squashed. Let go, this is Colt King Academy, not home. Junai resisted with a red face, her face full of panic. She didn't expect Dustless to suddenly attack her, especially when there were many other students around. Not home? In other words, as long as we're home, we can have some alone time? Dustless smiled evilly as he stared at Junai's bulging clothes. His hands reached into Junai's clothes on purpose. Slap. Junai slapped Dustless's hands away and said with a straight face, "You did it on purpose." She was just bored and wanted to tease Dustless, but she didn't expect him to take the act seriously and take advantage of her even more. On purpose? Maybe, but it would be too much of a killjoy if I just sat there like a block of wood when a beauty threw herself at me. Dustless played with Junai's hands. She didn't object, so it wasn't hard to imagine their relationship. So warm, no wonder Rias fell for you in just a few days. Her palms were warm as if she was soaking in warm spring water. It was unusually calm and relaxed. Dustless's arms were like heaven. Even I fell for it? Junai laughed bitterly at herself. She finally understood what it meant to be together for a long time. Even if there was no such thing as feelings, as time passed, two people would fall deeply into each other's hearts. Moreover, Dustless and Junai were living together every day. Speaking of which, why are those people from the church looking for you? Suppressing the strange emotions in his heart, Junai changed the topic and tried to maintain a natural smile. What else could it be? They're always bothering themselves with some ordinary scrap metal. Those people from the church are really bored. Dustless leaned his head on the bench and said in a bored and uninterested manner, "Scrap metal?" Junai frowned and could not help but ask, "What do you think the church is?" "They're not a junkyard." "I think so. In any case, the holy sword is no different from scrap metal in my eyes." Dustless shrugged casually. "Are you saying that the church's holy sword is a piece of scrap metal?" Junai glared at Dustless in annoyance. He couldn't help but cry out for those who had been killed by the holy sword. His eyes darted around, afraid that Archangel Michael would suddenly jump out and strangle Dustless. In the blink of an eye, a day had passed in the Supernatural Research Department. At this moment, everyone from the Supernatural Research Department was present, except for one person, Hyuda Issei. "I didn't see Yijo-san yesterday and he didn't come to school today. It seems like he didn't ask for leave from the teacher, and I went to his house to look for him, but there was no one there." Frowning, Shiba Yudo said worriedly. Thinking of Hyuda Issei, everyone felt a headache. This guy's brain was empty, and it seemed like he only had things like Appa. His training and strength were even worse. TSK, it seems like it's because of me that Hyuda Issei ended up in this state. Otherwise, he would be the one surrounded by the girls right now. Dustless thought to himself and couldn't help but sympathize with Xen. Hyuda Issei was still a general without an army, and all the girls that he was interested in were all in Dustless's arms. That was why Hyuda Issei was still single. "Mr. Issei should be fine, right?" the kind-hearted Aisha said worriedly. Even though she had turned into a demon, she still maintained a kind heart. "No, Senpai is the host of the Red Dragon Emperor's Gauntlet. He won't be that useless. Although his strength is still very weak, I think he should be able to protect himself." Kitten was still somewhat confident in Hyuda Issei. "Of course he will be fine." Dustless also nodded in agreement and then ridiculed in his heart, "If he sees Appa, Brother Issei will unleash a strength that will make even the gods retreat." The reputation of the Breast Dragon Emperor was not for nothing. Dong dong dong. At this moment there was a sudden burst of messy knocking on the door. Before Rias could open her mouth to let someone in, the person directly broke the door open and barged in. Sorry for the sudden interruption. The person who came in was Tsang Na's servant, Shinra Chuanji. At this moment, her hair was covered in sweat, and she was panting heavily. It seemed like she had run all the way here. "The situation is urgent, so I'll make it short. Rias's servant, Hyuda Issei, has been captured." Shinra Chuanji's words were shocking, and at the same time she took out a photo. On the photo was the pitiful Hyuda Issei who was beaten up, and the culprit, the lost priest, freed Saren. This kid is really unlucky to be caught by that perverted priest. I'm afraid he's dead by now." Dustless touched his chin and gloated. "No, not yet." Shinra Chuanji organized her tone and said seriously, "Just now we met the senior officer of the fallen angel, Korkabor, and he personally came to issue a challenge." This time Shinra Chuanji took out another photo. The two girls who were besieged were Genova and Wisteria Rena. Chapter 13-14. The two girls wielding sacred swords were in a sorry state, sweating profusely as they stood back to back, staring at the approaching enemy. Was this sent by Kokbor? Dustless glanced at Shinra Chuanji and asked. The picture was quite good, probably taken at close range. Kokbor probably ordered his men to take it to threaten Rias. The atmosphere was tense and no one said a word. In the middle of the picture was a close-up of Kokbor himself, flapping his dense black wings, his expression full of arrogance. As a cadre of the fallen angels, Kokbor did have the right to look down on others. This idiot called Kokbor looks like an idiot. Is he tired of living, or does he think that he is invincible and can look down on everything? Dustless spoke first to break the silence. I've decided to save them. Rias followed suit. The decision was sudden, but her tone was firm. This time it was not just about saving Genova and Wisteria Rena, as well as her kin Hada Ise. Everyone get ready. They definitely did not expect to rescue the hostages after sending the picture. Rias spoke quickly. Her sudden change of heart seemed to be without a plan, but in reality she had ulterior motives. Don't you need to prepare? The enemy is a high-ranking cadre of the fallen angels, someone who once fought against the gods. Shinra Chuanji's expression changed, and her words were full of dissuasion. This picture was sent by Kokbor himself. Must be a trap. Don't fall for it. They must have planned this beforehand and are waiting for us to walk right into their trap. Of course I know it's a trap. Before Rias could speak, Dustless spoke first. If we're afraid of the enemy just because it's a trap, then we're no different from assaulted fish. Dustless's words made everyone unable to restrain their laughter. The originally tense atmosphere eased up quite a bit. You're crazy. Kokbor is a cadre of the fallen angels, not a normal pawn. Shinra Chuanji did not give up and tried her best to dissuade Rias. She said softly, the president hopes that everyone can wait for about 2 hours and then we can. I appreciate Song's kindness, but I don't need it. This is a mission from the Supernatural Research Lab. She actually wanted to use this opportunity to test the strength of herself and the favored. After all, there would not be any major problems. After all, with the existence of the Bug Dustless, all problems would be solved. Under the dark night sky, the whole world was bitterly cold. In a remote outskirts there were very few people here. All that could be seen were plains. There was only an inconspicuous and dilapidated church. The walls were covered with thick moss, and it had been abandoned for a long time. Swish, swish. After a series of sharp whistling sounds, Dustless and the others appeared. Alili. He actually chose such a barren place as our burial ground. That fellow Korkabor is truly heartless. Rias and the others had wanted to sneak in and figure out the situation, but Dustless' dissatisfaction spread throughout the night, and they were all exposed to the enemy. I didn't do it on purpose. I just felt it. Dustless coughed awkwardly when he saw everyone looking at him with disdain. Thud, thud, thud. At the same time, leisurely footsteps came from inside the church, along with an arrogant tone. Eek. Shitty Demon's teammates have finally come to save the Shitty Demon. Good, this time let me chop you all into pieces and feed you to the dogs. Hearing this crazy tone, Dustless did not even need to look to know who it was. All the trash demons are mobilized this time. 1, 2, 3. 5 or 6 came at once. This is enough for me to show off my skills. Fried carried his oddly shaped golden greatsword and shouted. He did not care about Rias and the others at all, and had already sentenced them to death. There are so many arrogant bugs like him. Doesn't he know that he's the reason why I hate him for smelling the air around him? Dustless waved his hand in annoyance. He realized that the air he breathed into his nostrils had a foul stench. You damned handsome gigolo, what did you say? Hearing that, Fried's gaze fell on Dustless. He was not an idiot. Naturally, he knew what Dustless meant. How dare he say that my mouth stinks? How dare he? Under everyone's gaze, Fried carried his gleaming holy sword and turned around, walking towards Dustless. His face was cold as ice. Shitty Demon, there seems to be a difference between you and them. Pointing at Rias and the others, Fried frowned slightly. His sloppy expression was somewhat restrained. He felt that there was a world of difference between Dustless and Rias and the others. How shocking. You can still see the difference between Rias and me. Tiske, I didn't think that there would be a piece of trash like you in this backwater latrine. Dustless said with a smile, giving a thumbs up with a flattering expression. Rias, Junai, Tachin Kitten, Aisha, and the others could not help but laugh. Dustless's analogy was even worse than pointing at Fried's nose and scolding him. You're asking for it. I'll cut you into pieces right now. Seeing this, Fried flew into a rage. Holding the sacred sword he had stolen, he charged at Dustless. This young gigolo's strength was only half-baked, but his mouth was sharp and crafty. Chapter 13-15. Fried's crazy face was distorted, his eyes were filled with tyrannical light. The way he looked at Dustless was as if he had met the enemy who killed his father after so many years. Stupid thing. Seeing this, Dustless's pupils shrank, and a cold mist appeared around his body. Go to hell, you hateful gigolo. When he was only a few meters away from Dustless, Fried stomped hard on the ground with both feet. His body was like a spring as he jumped dozens of meters high. Trying to kill me with the force of falling? There is a disdainful sneer on the corner of his mouth. If he was killed in a daze, the Kage who was killed by him in the past as well as the Marine Admiral including the Captain of Death, will harass him in his dreams. What a bright light! Fried exclaimed. A small light suddenly condensed on his thumb, and it was the size of a thumb. You want to use this fluorescent light to resist me? Is today April Fool's Day? Fried held the holy sword with both hands and gathered 90% of his strength, intending to cut Dustless in half. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. It was also at this critical moment that a black shadow suddenly appeared and disrupted Fried's plans. Clang. Sparks flew in the void and Fried's invincible attack was stopped. Kiba blocked the fatal attack for Dustless. You really like to meddle in other people's business. Dustless glanced at the blond young man in front of him, and his tone was not frivolous, nor did he show any gratitude. That's right, damn handsome blonde, you really like to meddle in other people's business. Fried gritted his teeth. Because of Kiba interference, Dustless's annoying face was still alive in the world, disgusting him. Leave Fried to me. He and I are old rivals. You guys go and save Ishite-kun. Kiba held his sword with both hands, completely different from his usual gentleness, revealing a cold murderous intent. Be careful, Yudo. Seeing how insistent he was, Riaz did not refuse Kiba kindness and sneaked around Fried into the ruined church. Are you trying to ignore my existence? Fried glared angrily at Riaz, who was leaving in a hurry. Just as he was about to charge at her, an agile figure blocked his path. Clang. Yudo brandished the long sword in his hand. His swordsmanship was quite exquisite, and he forced Fried to retreat from tricky angles. You guys have fun, I'll be leaving first. Dustless waved his hand at Kiba as he hummed a tune and walked into the depths of the church like he was taking an afternoon stroll. Bastard, who allowed you to leave? Stop right there. Seeing Dustless's frivolous expression, Fried was furious. Seeing that Dustless had exposed his back to him, he knew that this was a rare opportunity to launch a sneak attack. However, what happened next made Fried vomit blood. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The cold glint of a sword swept toward Fried. His heart was bleeding. Helpless, he could only retreat. The distance between him and Dustless increased until they completely disappeared. Bastard demon, that gigolo is a very important person in your organization. Otherwise, you wouldn't be protecting him so desperately, Fried narrowed his eyes and said. He could acutely sense that Dustless's identity was not ordinary. He is indeed extraordinary, but he is our department head's fiancé. Yuda did not try to hide anything. Dustless's identity was no secret. However, there is one thing that you are mistaken about. I did everything I could to prevent you from getting close to him, not to protect Dustless. Yuda took a deep look at Fried, whose expression was twisted with madness, and said bluntly, You misunderstood. I prevented you from getting close to Dustless because I know that you are not from the same dimension as him. I reckon that you will be instantly killed. This is not the ending I want to see. I still have a lot of questions to ask you, so naturally I can't let you die so easily. Rather than protecting Dustless, it's better to say that I am protecting you. Inside the spacious and dilapidated church, the air was filled with the stench of rotting corpses, which was nauseating. There doesn't seem to be any powerful characters. His observation haki spread quietly like a wave, and the entire dilapidated church was under the eyes of Dustless. Carefully perceiving the surrounding life forms, Dustless was disappointed to find that most of them were at the level of supporting characters. Ishichin-sen, are you okay? On the stone pillar supporting the entire church, Huda Issei was covered in blood and tightly bound by iron chains. His body was full of wounds and it was estimated that he had been tortured before. There is someone else. Under the perception of observation haki, Dustless found that there was a person tied on the other side of the stone pillar. When he approached, it was a familiar figure. Miss Rina E? Dustless walked to Rina Yi's side, looking at her sleeping face, he couldn't help but frown. She's the only one who's been captured. Genova probably escaped unharmed. Speaking of which, where did Korkabor go? After loosening the bindings on Rina E, she was lying in Dustless's arms. She looked like a kitten, sleeping soundly and comfortably. Are you really a hostage? Wu Chen smiled bitterly as he looked at Wisteria Irina, who was in his arms. Compared to Brother Cheng, who was severely tortured, she was completely fine. Ta ta ta. At the same time, there was a burst of footsteps in the corridor leading to the second floor, and a vague outline slowly walked downstairs. He gave people the impression that he was a deadly poisonous snake, and his entire body was filled with venom. Chapter 13:16. Dustless noticed the figure that suddenly appeared as well, but he did not pay much attention to it after noticing that he was not much different from a normal human being. He ignored him as a minor character. Now it seemed that this guy was someone. Cough cough cough, Huda Issei, who was rescued, coughed violently as he opened his blank eyes. You're finally here to save me. After a long while, Huda Issei finally gave a disappointing reply. Riaz and the rest sighed as their hope for Huda Issei was extinguished. He had the world's top divine vanquisher tool, the Red Dragon Emperor's Gauntlet, but the host was terrible. Huda Issei's decadence had something to do with Dustless. The Supernatural Research Department had almost become Dustless's harem. Not only would Huda Issei not improve here, but he would also be beaten black and blue. Speaking of which, are you Balpa Galileo? Even in the pitch-black night sky, Wu Qin could still clearly see the old man coming down. On the surface he looked benevolent and harmless, but in fact he was a ruthless executioner. Even if it was a child of a few years old, he could also kill him. At the same time, he was also the mastermind of Project Holy Sword Balpa Galileo. Tell me, where did Korkabor go? I have no interest in humans like you. Dustless asked lazily as his tone was filled with contempt and mockery. Balpa Galileo was fine with research, but when it came to combat, he was not even as good as Fried, so he naturally could not pique Dustless's interest. Are you looking down on me? Barpa was enraged, and at the same time he shouted, Fried! I'm here, boss. Outside the church, there were incessant sounds of flattery. Then, a black shadow rushed over and stood beside Barpa like a guardian deity. Looks like you two failed in the end. In the end, it still depends on me. Dustless mumbled to himself out of boredom. He thought that he could relax with a fallen angel officer around, but he did not even know where that guy went. Thud thud thud. At the same time, a large number of fallen angels appeared around the church. Riaz, Dustless, and the rest were surrounded without them noticing. Damn it, just as I guessed, they had set up an ambush. These fallen angels should be Korkabor's trusted followers. Riaz clenched her fists as she said with a serious look in her eyes. These fallen angels were probably loyal followers of Korkabor in the past. Allah Allah Allah, it seems like we're in trouble, Junai also said solemnly. Touching the kitten and Isha also leaned against each other with their backs facing each other, looking very nervous. Ah, you knew it was a trap, yet you still dared to walk right into it. What a bunch of hopeless idiots. Barpa held his stomach and laughed maniacally, looking very arrogant. I'll leave those small fries to you. Ignoring the surrounding fallen angels, Dustless quietly looked at Balupa Galileo and Fried. Be careful. Riaz, Junai, Takei the kitten, and Aisha gathered together. Not only did they have to defend against the incoming enemies, but they also had to do their best to protect Issei, who had fainted. Damn pretty boy, I'm not going to trouble you, but you still dare to come and die. Fried laughed savagely. He was indeed powerful, as he had already injured Kiba Yudu. Especially, Fried looked at Wisteria Rena in Dustless's arms and said sinisterly, You dare to fight me with a woman in your arms? I don't know if you're brave or you don't know how to spell the word death. Boom boom boom. At the same time, a fierce battle broke out around them. Riaz and Junai were fighting fiercely against the incoming fallen angels. While Kitten was in charge of protecting Issei and defeating the incoming enemies, Aisha was in charge of healing him. Their teamwork could be considered tacit. Thud thud thud. Dustless looked at Fried quietly. He was too lazy to talk nonsense with this idiot. He carried Wisteria Rena and calmly walked toward him and Balpa Galileo. His clean face had no extra expression, and his eyes were as calm as water. This kind of ant could be killed with a raise of his hand. He had no right to talk to him. Bang. After closing the distance between Fried and Balpa Galileo, Dustless suddenly stopped. He hooked his finger and sneered contemptuously. Bring it on, small fries. Hearing this, Fried's anger exploded. Kiba Yudo's words had already left a deep psychological impact on him. Now that Dustless dared to provoke him in such an arrogant manner, he could no longer tolerate it. Moreover, Fried did not know what tolerance meant. Go to hell, annoying pretty boy. Fried had the same evil expression every time he appeared. When he attacked the enemy, he always liked to show an extremely twisted and sick face. He could do it to others, but he was still far from being able to intimidate Dustless. He was just asking for humiliation. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sharp radiance of the holy sword was about to swallow Dustless and Wisteria Rena, but the two of them were motionless like stones, treating everything as air. Seeing that Dustless did not dodge, Freed's hideous smile became even more sinister. His sick smile was filled with evil, as if he could already see Dustless's tragic death. Buzz buzz buzz. When the holy sword was about to cut through Dustless's head, a transparent repulsive force field expanded. Shinra Tensei. Sensing the special power coming from his body, Freed's expression changed slightly. This was an attack without any substance, and it sent him flying effortlessly. Bang! Freed landed heavily on the bed. The dull sound was as if his bones were broken, and there was obvious blood flowing out of his head. KO in one move. Chapter 13-17. The commotion on Dustless's side attracted everyone's attention. They were all stunned and looked at him in disbelief. Dustless easily sent Freed flying without making a move. It was as if Freed was the one who was sent flying. Freed. Seeing such a scene, Balpa Galileo roared in anger out of humiliation. Bo boss. Seemingly used to being an underling for a long time, even though Freed was still unconscious, when he heard Balpa Galileo's voice, he instinctively called the boss. How have I treated you? Suppressing the anger in his heart, Balpa asked with a gloomy face. Do you even need to ask? Of course you're rotten to the core. You think you're good to me? Freed complained in his heart, but on the surface, he had a flattering expression. He raised his thumb and said against his conscience, Boss, I'm indebted to you even more than my own parents. Hearing this, Balpa became even angrier. He took out a pistol and pointed it at Freed. Since you know that I'm good to you, why did you throw yourself out? That kid didn't even make a move, and there was no magic fluctuation. Your acting is too fake. But this prop is pretty good. There's so much blood on your head. This prop is exactly the same as human blood. Caw caw caw. Hearing this, countless crows flew over Freed's head. He was speechless and decisively labeled Balpa Galileo as an idiot. Throw the match? I'll let your sister loose. Even I don't know how I got sent flying. Freed's face was dark. His boss was only good at research, but he was an idiot in all other aspects. TSK. The enemy is right in front of you, and you two still dare to put on such a weird performance. You two are quite capable, you two are very talented in acting, but I'm not interested in this kind of vulgar drama, so I'm sorry, but please die. Behind Balpa, high-density photons floated and flashed, and Dustless appeared. He looked down coldly at Balpa Galileo, who had his back facing him. Light danced in his right hand, and a golden greatsword instantly condensed into form. Feeling the aura of death that he had never felt before, Balpa was so scared that his soul trembled. He turned his head to look, only to see a deathly still expression on his face as he raised the heaven-gathering cloud sword that was made from the glint fruit. Don't kill me. The person protecting me is a high-ranking officer of the fallen angels, Corcobor. Balpa Galileo retreated in fear, hoping that Dustless would be afraid of the reputation of the fallen angel cadre. After all, Corcobor was someone who had fought with God and the Demon King. Swish, swish. It would have been better if Balpa Galileo had not said such nonsense. After he finished speaking, the heavenly sword of clouds fell even faster and instantly cut Balpa into pieces. Pucci. He was cut in half by Dustless like tofu. His eyes were wide open when he died, and his face was full of unwillingness. That idiot? I've been looking for him for a long time. Dustless glanced coldly at Balpa Galileo's corpse, then stepped over it and slowly walked towards Freed, who was still on the verge of ascending to heaven. Don't come over. Freed shouted in fear, scared out of his wits by Dustless's strength. However, Dustless did him a rare favor and stopped in his tracks at the first moment. Phew! Seeing this, Freed heaved a sigh of relief. Remembering Dustless's unprecedented strength, he quickly knelt on the ground and kowtowed sincerely. You will be my boss from now on. Boss, my name is... No need to introduce yourself, I know your name is Freed. Dustless directly interrupted. Freed looked at him in boredom and asked, Freed, do you know why I stopped? Freed was stunned at first, then said without hesitation, You must have taken a fancy to my talent and wanted to take me in as your underling to deal with Corcobor. You be my underling? Hearing this, Dustless could not help but laugh. He did have an underling, but his strength was hundreds of times higher than Freed's. This guy was not even qualified to carry his shoes. You don't deserve to be my underling. The reason I stopped is actually... Dustless looked at Freed with a cold gaze. His eyes had already changed and he said in a low voice, "Actually, I want to ask if you have any last words. Based on your current answer, it seems like you don't have any last words. In that case, die in peace." Amaterasu. Fried was shocked. Just as he was about to flatter, his body lit up with black flames. At first it was just a weak flame, but in the next second, it turned into a blazing black will-o'-the-wisp and swallowed him whole. Kill me. Fried, who was being burned by Amaterasu, was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. His tone was filled with regret and it was chilling. Idiot, enjoy it slowly. After glancing at Fried, Dustless walked toward Riaz and the others with light steps. The two of them were not from the same dimension, and the difference between them was too great. Dustless was not interested at all. It was just a one-sided slaughter. However, compared to Dustless, Riaz and the others were having a much harder time. This was a trap that Korkabor had set up in advance, and they were invading without any preparation. Not everyone had the same strength as Dustless, who could crush the world 100 times over. Riaz and the others were in a tough battle. Croc croc croc. The defensive magic circle that Riaz had painstakingly set up was attacked by multiple forces. She could not hold it alone, and in the end the magic circle could not withstand the pressure and was shattered. A dense cloud of magic bullets flew toward Riaz and the others. Xiao Mao and the others were exhausted, and they could only watch as the magic bullets tried to destroy them all. Chapter 13-18. Riaz, Junai, Kitten, Aisha, and the others all had despair written all over their faces. Looking at the large number of fallen angels swarming toward them, they felt their scalps tingle and despair. Their fighting spirit also fell to the bottom, and they could not find their confidence again. They finally understood the saying that many ants could kill an elephant. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A sky full of flashing magic attacks came whistling, and just as they were about to devour Riaz and the others, a blue barrier formed under their feet. Binding Path 73 Mountain Toppling Crystal. A triangular defensive barrier appeared instantly, turning into a sturdy barrier that blocked all kinds of attacks. Boom, boom, boom. A large number of magic light bullets all landed on the barrier, and a series of explosions sounded. The entire church shook as if it would collapse at any moment. The ground was also torn apart by the fierce battle. Boom, boom, boom. No matter how much the outside world exploded or how big the tremors were, Riaz and the rest were not affected by the aftershocks. No matter what kind of attack happened, they were not affected. It was as if Riaz and the rest were living in another peaceful world, free from the flames of war and the threat of death. How is this possible? Seeing how the barrier was so strong and indestructible, Riaz and the rest were dumbfounded. Snowball was so shocked that it was undulating. It was not that they were ignorant, but the dreamlike scene in front of them had shattered their worldview. Don't look so incredulous as if you are living in a fairy tale world. I can tell you clearly that what you are seeing is not a dream. A voice filled with certainty sounded in the girl's ears, and it instantly attracted Riaz and the rest's attention. They were familiar with this cynical tone. Dustless. The members of the Supernatural Research Lab exclaimed. Whoosh, whoosh. Seeing Dustless appear, these fallen angels also found a new target to attack. He was like a black hole that attracted all the attacks. Boom, boom, boom. After a short few seconds, Dustless was hit by a rain of magic bullets. The violent explosions surrounded him for a long time, and his body kept breaking into pieces. But no matter what kind of attack he took, Dustless would recover again. Is he immortal? Riaz mumbled in disbelief. The cleavage that she was so proud of swayed back and forth, and the huge meatballs swayed up and down. That soul-stirring arc made Dustless ignore the fallen angel's attack as he stared straight at Riaz. You bunch of bugs. Frowning slightly, Dustless looked around at the fallen angel who was occupying the void. His eyes turned cold and he rolled his eyes. It was as if a natural disaster had suddenly descended upon the world. Super Shinra Tensei. Boundless chakra erupted from his body, and the surging repulsive force destroyed everything in its path. Boom boom boom. The fallen angels floating in the air turned into dust in the air and disappeared without a trace. At the same time they felt a lot cooler. Riaz and the others were stunned to find that after the catastrophic attack, their surroundings were no different from the apocalypse. Not even a blade of grass grew. The abandoned church was nowhere to be seen, and the fallen angel's corpse was nowhere to be found. Only the ground beneath Riaz's feet remained intact. The rest of the area had been renovated, and the soil hundreds of meters underground was exposed to the moonlight. So powerful. Hyoto Issei, who had regained his senses, swallowed hard. The Red Dragon Emperor's gauntlet on his arm also flashed with an emerald light. He was also surprised by the powerful attack. Super Shinra Tensei's power and distance limit are minimal, or this town would have disappeared as well. Dustless did not bother to explain, and at the same time, under everyone's shocked gaze, his body started to change strangely. Bam! Dustless's body started to emit white smoke, and he turned into a block of wood. What's going on, Riaz? As if their brains were not enough to process the change, Riaz and the others asked like statues, their faces blank. Damn it, now I understand what he meant by those words. Looking at the mess left behind by the Super Shinra Tensei, Riaz smiled bitterly. She was also stunned by Dustless's unfathomable strength. He once said that if one's strength could transcend the boundaries of race, then he would be the demon king and god, including the so-called dragon race. Now it seems that he was right. Riaz's tone was raised by several octaves, and it sounded very sharp. If she did not see it with her own eyes, she would have thought that this was the aftermath of a fierce battle between the gods. Is it that exaggerated? Hyoto Issei asked doubtfully in a low voice. His voice was so soft that no one could hear it. Of course, there was one special existence who was an exception, and he clearly heard Hyoto Issei's complaint. That guy is not simple, at least he is not a creature of the same dimension as you. The Red Dragon Emperor's voice echoed in Hyoto Issei's mind. His voice was full of vicissitudes, and he could not figure out how Dustless could do this. There was no magic wave. That explosive power that could destroy the world made even the Red Dragon Emperor's heart skip a beat. If he was not careful, he would be pulled into the underworld to accompany the evil spirits. Actually, you have to work hard. Even if you are not as good as that guy, you can still reach the point where you can look down on the world. The Red Dragon Emperor saw Hyoto Issei's reluctance and tried to tempt him. The Red Dragon Emperor's strength was undeniable, but it was a pity that Hyoto Issei's host was a weirdo. Only when he met something like Dustless would he be able to unleash his shocking strength. However, the sad thing was that his harem had all joined Dustless, and he had become a general without an army. Not only did he not have any Dustless, but he also had to envy Dustless's romantic encounters and live under Dustless's shadow. Chapter 13-19. Really? Lord Red Dragon Emperor? Hyoto Issei was so excited that his eyes almost turned into hearts. In fact, he was also a young man with 8th grade syndrome. He often dreamt of himself stepping on thousands of worlds and countless beauties rushing to throw themselves into his arms. You've changed your attitude a little too quickly, partner. Red Dragon Emperor was speechless. He even suspected that if he could give Hyoto Issei great power, this guy would immediately kneel and call him Lord Red Dragon Emperor. Of course, you can even surpass that guy. Red Dragon Emperor said confidently. As one of the 2 sky dragons, his power was not to be underestimated. Korkabor hasn't shown himself yet. Could it be that he's going back to Chariot King Academy first? Riaz suddenly gave a serious order. She seemed to have thought of something as her expression turned gloomy. Visible beads of sweat even dripped from her hair. The situation was urgent. Inside Chariot King Academy, a strange-looking building floated in the sky, controlled by someone's will. A man with a ferocious expression sat on top of it. He looked down at Chariot King Academy with disdain. A bunch of idiots. That's just my little trick to lure the enemy away. My real goal is to destroy this academy and this eyesore town, Korkabor said disdainfully. Kokeber said condescendingly. He lifted his gaze slightly, his face calm and confident. He did not seem to care about the crowd that was rushing over from afar. He looked over and saw that the team belonged to the student council. The leader was the president of the student council, Sangna. This despicable fallen angel's real goal is Chariot King Academy. Sangna saw Korkabor's sinister smile. Her face turned pale as she looked at his dense wings. Fear could not help but flash in her eyes. The fallen angel officers were far stronger than her. I've investigated your information. You're called Sangna Swiderwai, the younger sister of the demon king, Leviathan, Seraphil. If I kill you according to Seraphil's personality, she'll definitely start a war with the fallen angels immediately. At that time the angels will definitely be involved and the 3 forces will start a war again, haha. Korkabor laughed maniacally. He was so excited that he almost danced. Die, sister of the demon king, Leviathan. Sangnan Swiderwai. Kokeber said crazily. Light flickered in his hand, and a huge spear of light materialized in the blink of an eye. Kokeber, who was holding the spear of light, became even more arrogant. The hearts of Tsang Nan and the others were filled with despair. She even began to hallucinate that the Grim Reaper was waving at her with a smile. Disappear. The light spear only had half of its power, so as to prevent any sudden changes, Korkabor threw it out. It was fine as long as it could kill Tsang and the others. Destroying this town could wait. So, the golden light descended at a speed that defied the laws of physics. In the blink of an eye, it was already close to Tsang Na and the others. She also closed her eyes in despair. Boom boom boom. An earth-shattering explosion erupted, causing the entire Colt King Academy to tremble. The ground was mercilessly torn apart, and the school building was flattened by the shockwaves of the explosion. A bottomless crater appeared in the center of the building. I'm not dead? To Tsang Na's surprise, she was not dead yet. A divine golden light enveloped her. Big sister? Tsang Na was pleasantly surprised. The first person who could resist the attack of a fallen angel cadre was her sister, Seraph. Sorry, your sister is busy and can't come. Your brother-in-law is here. A teasing tone was heard, and Dustless's figure appeared. It's you? I don't have a brother-in-law. Watch your words. Tsang Na's face darkened and she said in an unfriendly tone. Her good impression of Dustless for saving her disappeared instantly. TSK. You're denying me like this. Are you saying? Dustless leaned close to Tsang Na's ear and blew hot air, causing her face to turn red. Her delicate cheeks were especially charming. You want to level up and sit at the same position as your sister? You want to spend the rest of your life with your sister? It's actually very simple. Under what circumstances could she level up and sit at the same position, and be together forever? Marry Dustless together. You bastard. Tsang Na was so angry that she stomped her feet. Her body was shaking and her followers were glaring at him. Who are you? Hurry up and give it to me if you don't want to die. You dare to ruin my plan. Even if you're smart enough to leave now, I'll still tear you into pieces and burn your bones to ashes to vent my anger. Korkabor said with a murderous aura. He stared at Dustless with his red eyes and suddenly found him familiar. He asked, I think I've seen you before. I remember. Oh right, you're the husband of Demon King Sizak's sister. A thought flashed through his mind, and Korkabor revealed Dustless's identity. He then laughed ruthlessly. If I kill you and Seraph's sister, the Leviathan, the devils will definitely fly into a rage. By then, the three great forces will definitely be plunged into a whirlpool of war again. Korkabor's expression was filled with fanaticism and excitement, as if he had seen the day his dream came true. Speaking of which, Freed and Barpa still have a lot of fallen angels. They should be holding you back. Why? Korkabor had a bad feeling as he stared at Dustless, who was smiling evilly. It's very simple. The me with Riaz and the others is actually just a shadow clone. My true self has never left Chariot King Academy. Poor thing, you stupid crow. You actually thought that your plan was a success. How sad. Dustless was not only powerful, but his words were also vicious. Korkabor's face turned green with anger. Chapter 1320. Powerhouses all had a common problem. They thought that they were powerful and fearless. Therefore most of them were proud and arrogant. A mere human dares to look down on me? Don't worry, I won't kill you instantly. That would be too boring. If I kill you like this, Sizak's as the Demon King would be embarrassed too. Korkabor seemed to have seen Sizak's angry expression. His arms were trembling with excitement. If you knew that I had already cuckolded Sizak's, you wouldn't think that way, Dustless muttered in his heart as a strange glint flashed across his eyes. After all, you're the intruder. If you don't attack, I won't hold back. He glanced at Kokeber calmly. Kokeber was so crazy that no medicine could save him. Just you? Hearing this, Korkabor revealed a mocking smile and mocked. You should be a human, right? Your body doesn't have any magic waves. Forget about fighting me. Even if you wanted to fly into the sky and hit me, you wouldn't be able to. Korkabor, you talk too much. A cold voice came from behind. Korkabor turned his head, but the stinky sole of a shoe happened to stuff his mouth. Lightspeed kick. Korkabor, who was sitting steadily, had his mouth deformed. He was kicked crooked and his teeth fell to the ground. His entire body was like an arrow released from a bow. The powerful force sent him flying hundreds of meters away. Boom, boom, boom. The golden light around Korkabor's body exploded. The black night sky suddenly became as bright as day. A giant fireball burned in the air, eye-catching. So powerful. Tsang's eyes were fixed on Dustless, who was floating in the sky. Her expression was one of admiration. A person who could cripple an officer of the fallen angels with one kick must be someone who stood at the top of the pyramid. You bastard. I will skin you alive. Korkabor's hysterical, pained, and hateful roar came from the explosion of flames. Because his mouth was kicked crooked, Korkabor sadly found that he was stuttering. Ah! Ko-Keber screamed as if he had lost his mind. He raised his hands high and formed a shining spear of light. Monotonous moves. Using the same move again and again, it's really boring. Sighing in disappointment, Wu Chen's interest waned. He originally thought that the fallen angels' cadres had outstanding acting skills and could bring about a thrilling performance. Who would have thought that it would be such a vulgar performance that lacked layers and surprises? Dustless only wanted to express one word: rotten. Get over here. Dustless aimed his palm at Ko-Keber, who was focused on strengthening the power of the spear of light. A teasing look flashed past Dustless' eyes. With his palm aimed at him, Ko-Keber immediately lost his balance. 10,000 mammoth heavenly attraction. Invisible gravitational waves lingered between heaven and earth, and the flow of the wind immediately changed. Wherever the gravitational force went, everything began to float. Korkabor's body could not be controlled, swaying from side to side like a puppet controlled by strings. What's going on? A hint of panic flashed through Korkabor's eyes as he cried out in surprise. He instinctively looked at Dustless. Is this your doing? Noticing the gravitational waves coming from Dustless's direction, Ko-Keber asked sternly. At the same time, he revealed his black wings and flapped them with all his might, trying to stabilize his body and resist Dustless. He originally thought that it would be an easy plan. Who would have thought that the heavens would play a huge joke on him, encountering such a nameless monster that was so powerful that it could easily kill him? A drowning crow can only die. Seeing that Ko-Keber was resisting the gravitational force, Dustless increased the density of chakra, and the gravitational force of 10,000 heavens pull became even stronger. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the end, Ko-Keber finally lost control of his body and was pulled over by the gravitational force. Go to hell. Driven mad, Ko-Keber's murderous intent intensified. He used all his strength to throw out the unformed spear of light. Due to the inertia of the gravitational force, it almost instantly approached Dustless and exploded. Boom boom boom. The dark night sky was sublimated once again, turning into a blinding day for a short period of time. The power of the explosion of the spear of light affected the void within a 100-meter radius. Even the air was vaporized by the aftermath of the explosion, and a suffocating sense of crisis filled the air. Ah, serves you right. You actually dared to provoke me. Arrogant brat, this is your tragic end. Ko-Keber's expression swept away the haze from before, and a painful smile appeared on his face. He touched his crooked mouth and immediately cursed without caring about his image. That damn brat, you better not have a corpse left. Otherwise I'll definitely explode your corpse for 3 days and then feed it to the dogs. Ko-Keber was furious. He gently touched his crooked mouth. His heart was bleeding. A dignified high-ranking officer of the fallen angels had his mouth crooked, and he could not even speak clearly, turning into a stutterer. Ko-Keber regretted it when he thought about it. He should not have killed Dustless and slowly tortured him to death to vent his hatred. Do you hate me that much? A calm and indifferent voice came from within the explosion. Dustless slowly walked out from the explosion of the spear of light. Unharmed. Ko-Keber looked at Dustless in disbelief, his mouth twitching. He was completely fine after being hit by such a powerful move? This was not a movie. How could it be? Our eyes must be playing tricks on us. Song Na and her family were also shocked. Dustless's eternal face had left an unerasable mark in their hearts. Ko-Keber, you're too weak. Even if I wanted to play a child's game with you, your performance is unflattering. Dustless shook his head and suddenly formed a hand seal, intending to end this boring battle. Chapter 13:21. His opponent was just a skinny and weak baby who could not even retaliate. There was no sense of accomplishment or interest in playing with him, not even comparable to a 4 or 5-year-old child. Dustless really had no desire to fight. B*****. Kokbor was enraged. He felt like a bug and a clown being toyed with. Let's stop here. Ominous chakra erupted from his body. Its quality was much higher than before and it was much more powerful. Immortal spell. Wu Chen's temperament changed in an instant. His playful appearance was restrained, and his indifferent eyes did not have any emotions that a living creature should have. Those eyes that did not have any human emotions were unusually intimidating. Kokebere felt weak in his heart. Oh no. Seeing this, Kokebore's heart skipped a beat. He realized, to his dismay, that Dustless did not intend to play with him anymore. He felt bored. Being treated like a plaything might sound very depressing, but at the very least, it meant that the other party was interested in him. Now that Dustless had suddenly put on such a cold and despairing face, Kokebore knew that Dustless did not intend to play with him anymore. This also meant that Dustless had lost his patience and would definitely destroy him. I need to think of a plan. Kokebore was sweating profusely. At this point he did not expect to start a war. If he could leave unscathed, it would be a blessing from the heavens. Kokebore, you be ****. Hurry up and return the sacred sword and Rena to me. At this moment an unexpected shout suddenly rang out. Dustless and Kokebore were both stunned. They instinctively followed the source of the sound. Dark blue short hair danced in the wind. She was wearing tight clothes that accentuated her curvy figure. She held a large sword in her hand, looking majestic and valiant. The girl had fair skin and beautiful features. She glared at Kokebore, who was soaring in the sky, with hatred. I'll join hands with you to deal with him. Looking at Dustless with a burning gaze, Genova vowed solemnly. That day she and Wisteria Rena had joined forces against the enemy. Although the two of them did not fear Kokebore, the difference in strength was still difficult to make up for. Genova had used a Herculean effort to escape, while Wisteria Rena had unfortunately been captured. Ah, good timing. Kokebore laughed maniacally, excitement flashing across his face. The way he looked at Genova had changed. Instead of looking at an enemy, his eyes were shining and full of covetousness. It was as if he was looking at a life-saving straw. From Genova's tone, the experienced Kokebore could tell that Dustless had a good relationship with her. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Kokebore used all his strength and fell with all his might. However, the target of his attack this time was not Dustless. He was truly afraid of this monster. His target was Genova. Get out of the way, Genova. His target is you. Seeing through Kokebore's intentions, she shouted loudly. However, it was too late. Genova's reaction was too slow. When she realized the impending danger and wanted to retreat, she had already become a hostage in the hands of others. Want to capture me? Dream on. Despite being captured, Genova still swung her holy sword to counterattack, displaying her extraordinary swordsmanship. Clang clang clang. Sparks flew everywhere. Genova's tide-like attacks were all blocked. She could not hurt Kokebore at all. The difference was too great. A child's weak fists could not hurt an adult. They would only be humiliating themselves. That was the case for Genova now. Her series of attacks had no effect at all. Ah, stay still and don't move. You're the reason I'm alive. Kokebore seemed to have seen the light of victory. He laughed maniacally and returned to his previous arrogant expression. Could it be? Upon closer inspection, Genova realized that Kokebore was covered in wounds and looked miserable. Even his mouth was crooked. Looks like not only did I not help, but I've become a burden. Genova blamed herself and smiled bitterly. She had wanted to help, but she did not expect to put shackles on Dustless instead. Don't blame yourself. You didn't do anything wrong. Dustless also landed on the ground. He looked at the disappointed Genova and smiled. This guy is going to die anyway. You being captured is just a simple process. However, the result will never change. Kokebore still has to die. Dustless gave the final word, deciding Kokebore's fate. That's easy for you to say. Hearing this, Kokebore's blood-red eyes flashed with anger. He pointed the light spear at Genova's throat and shouted hoarsely, "Get out of my way. If you don't want her to die, let me go." However, Dustless did not appreciate it. Instead, he mocked him coldly. Are you an idiot? Or are you a pig that can't understand human language? I've said it before. An eyesore like you will die without a doubt. You forced me to do this. Kokebore spat out blood. He did not expect Wu Qin to be so arrogant. Even with a hostage in hand, he still dared to be so arrogant. Kokebore flew into a rage out of humiliation and stabbed at Genova. Pfft. The sound of a body being cut into pieces rang out. Everyone was worried for Genova, but he was not the one screaming. Ow ow ow. The earth-shattering scream rang through the clouds and into everyone's ears. Song Na and the rest were shocked to discover that Dustless, who was brimming with killing intent, had appeared beside Kokebore at some point in time. There was a missing arm on the ground that belonged to Kokebore. Not only that, Dustless was extremely ruthless. He cut off both of Kokaber's arms and made a bloody hole in his abdomen. This was not the most shocking thing. Dustless raised and lowered his hand again. This time he took away both of Kokaber's legs. The bloody, violent, and cruel methods shocked everyone. Looking at Dustless, who had turned into a ghost, Song Na and the rest felt that the so-called demon was nothing compared to Dustless. This was the real Grim Reaper. Chapter 13:22. Dustless's expression was as cold as ice. His eyes were emotionless as he looked at the screaming Korkabor on the ground. He then took Genova into his arms. "Are you hurt?" Looking at the frightened Genova, Dustless asked in a hoarse voice. His tone was rare and magnetic, and his cold face quickly warmed up. It was warm, and there was a touch of humanity in his voice. "I am fine." She realized that Genova's face was burning as she struggled unnaturally. However, her insignificant strength was completely useless in front of Dustless. She was just asking to be humiliated and had no effect at all. "Don't move. This guy's not dead yet." Dustless looked at Genova strangely and held her even tighter. Genova's eyes flashed with depression. She felt Dustless tighten his grip. Her face turned even redder as if it could resist blood. "Maybe it's because I'm in the middle of a battle and I'm too focused to notice." Genova comforted herself. Dustless was holding on to a large ball of flesh. Due to his strength, it was squashed flat. Genova was also in pain, but she still endured it. "I hate it when people threaten me." Dustless raised his glowing greatsword again to stop Korkabor, who was screaming in pain, and said coldly, "I could have finished you in one go, but you chose the cruelest way to die. Is the brain of a fallen angel so useless? I'll haunt you even if I become a ghost." Korkabor's face was filled with despair. He no longer wanted to leave alive, especially in his current state. It was useless to leave alive. Therefore he might as well die and drag Dustless down with him. Every second he lived was agony. With a decision in his heart, Korkabor used all the magic in his body to attack his lungs. His body, which had been cut off with 4 limbs, strangely expanded. Still planning to resist? Dustless's expression turned cold. The cold air shooting out from his face was as sharp as a blade. "No." Genova shook her head and carefully observed Korkabor's body. Her face was pale. He's going to self-destruct." "Self-destruct?" Dustless was stunned for a moment before he asked without hesitation, "Fallen angels can self-destruct? I remember that only demons can self-destruct." Genova did not expect Dustless to be so stubborn over such a small matter. Sensing the danger, Genova urged, "There's nothing strange about this. When I run out of ammunition, I can also self-destruct. Anyway, let's get away from him quickly. This guy is crazy and dangerous." Run? It's useless. My self-destruction can erase this town. Trash demons and trash humans will all go to hell. Everyone can accompany each other on the road to hell." Korkabor laughed maniacally, but he did not see the disdain that flashed across Dustless's face. Ka. Because he had accumulated too much mana, Korkabor could no longer support the immense power. Visible cracks had already appeared on his abdomen. They could see the frightening amount of energy stored in his body. Once it was released, not just Chariot King Academy, but even the city itself would be severely damaged. Boom boom boom. After pausing for a few seconds, Korkabor's body turned into a bloody mist. The huge amount of energy had been released. Everyone tensed up, waiting for the end of the world to come. Divine might. At the same time, the void suddenly twisted violently like a fried dough twist. A huge black hole appeared. The self-destruction that Korkabor had spent so much effort to prepare was swallowed up by divine might before it could explode. "He's not dead?" The excited Genova opened his eyes. The night sky was exceptionally beautiful, and the stars in the sky were unusually peaceful. In his joy, Genova could not help but stand on his tiptoes, pursed his thin lips, and kissed Dustless's right cheek. *CK I was ambushed. Usually I'm the one who ambushes others. Today I was ambushed. Dustless was stunned and looked at Genova in shock. "Forget it. This annoying cockroach is completely dead." Dustless breathed a sigh of relief. Even the corpse was gone. Korkabor's aura and corpse had completely disappeared. If he knew that his carefully prepared self-destruction had been countered by Dustless, he would probably die in anger. "Looks like we're one step too late. Looks like it's over." An excited voice came from behind. Dustless turned around and saw a beautiful figure descending from the sky. Caught off guard, Dustless fell to the ground. Thud. This was the first time Dustless had been pressed to the ground since he was born, and the initiator was Rias. Much it hurts. Dustless rubbed his head, showing a pained expression. Sorry, I was too excited. Rias showed a worried expression. At the same time she leaned over and kissed Dustless's forehead. She asked with concern, "Does it still hurt? Do you want me to rub it for you?" "It hurts, of course it hurts. This time it's somewhere else." Hearing this, Wuchen looked at Rias with regret. He wanted to slap himself. How could he waste such a good opportunity on her? What a waste of God's gift. "Where does it hurt?" Rias asked with concern, hugging Dustless even tighter. "It's here. You were on top of me just now. It hurts. It's probably swollen. It's best if you can help me take a few bites and rub it." Dustless pointed at his lower body. It was the most important part of a man. "You dared to lie to me?" Seeing this, Rias's face flushed red. She glared fiercely at Wuchen, but while everyone's attention was still focused on the shock of Kobor's death, she discreetly rubbed Wuchen's face a few times. Chapter 13:23. Dustless could not stop himself from feeling the soft touch of her hand. He was addicted to it as if he was floating in the clouds. Dustless's soul was immersed in the warm spring water, swimming around in pleasure. TSK, what a natural seductress. After savoring it for a while, Rias retracted her hand with a blush on her face, leaving Dustless, who was still longing for more. Smack. After gently kissing Rias's face, Wuchen patted the dust off and stood up unscathed. "You were lying to me, humph?" Rias saw Dustless standing up proudly and immediately understood that he was making things up. She turned her head away unhappily with a look of disdain. Ahem. Seeing this, Dustless coughed awkwardly. He noticed that everyone was looking at him differently, and some even took a few steps back. Rias actually, I really, crock. Dustless prepared his words and was about to explain seriously when a bright light suddenly flashed in the dark night sky. There was also the sound of space shattering. A mysterious figure in white descended quietly, like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. Only a few people saw his existence, as if he had walked out of the shattered space. Those who could sense his presence could be counted on one hand. That's strange. I just caught Korkabor's presence. How did he disappear now? Where did he go? This is so troublesome. If it wasn't for Asashal's orders, I wouldn't waste my time looking for such a boring guy. Forget it, it's just a bunch of bugs. There was a ripple in the sky, followed by a voice mumbling to himself. It sounded extremely narcissistic and arrogant. Who's there? Using the weak moonlight, one could vaguely see the mysterious existence in the void. He wore silver armor, and its smooth surface was extremely bright, so much so that it could even reflect light. He also had a pair of cold and domineering eyes, and when he looked at all things in the world, he revealed a faint contempt. There was no one in this world who could invade his eyes. Forget it, it's too boring. Let's leave and find a place to sleep. A human voice came from within the armor. Just as he was about to turn and leave, an unprecedented agitation came from his body. It was as if he was about to burst into flames. He immediately stopped. That feeling just now, could it be, hey, what's going on? Why do I feel like I'm going to die from the heat? Hyoto Issei gripped his left arm tightly, or rather he pressed down on his divine armament, the Red Dragon Emperor's gauntlet. There was a scorching current of air entering his body, as if it was going to burn Hyoto Issei to ashes. It made him very uncomfortable, as if he had met his greatest nemesis. No wonder I had such a feeling. So it's you, my old enemy. The mysterious existence floating in the sky murmured, completely ignoring the existence of Silver and the others, treating them as air. Cough. This fellow really knows how to act. Dustless was speechless. He naturally knew who this person was. White Dragon Emperor Wally. Yo, long time no see, Red One. Inside the white mech, there was a voice filled with vicissitudes of life. It was the complete opposite of Wally's previous tone. It sounded much more experienced. Long time no see, White One. Hyoto Issei's divine armament suddenly spoke with the same vicissitudes of life. There was no doubt that the person who spoke this time was the Red Dragon Emperor himself, Drake. Looks like you're the host of the Red Dragon Emperor, Hyoto Issei. Your appearance is really disappointing. As he spoke, White Dragon Emperor Wally looked at the sky with a sorrowful expression. This fellow really knows how to act. Seeing this, Dustless pursed his lips. His impression of this narcissistic White Dragon Emperor plummeted. His gaze landed on Hyoto Issei, and a wicked smile flashed across his face. You're so weak that you're not worth my time. I'll let Hyodo Issei beat you up for me. Dustless's smile was especially creepy as he dragged his body toward Hyodo Issei. What did you say? Hyodo Issei was furious. Wally was obviously calling him a piece of trash. We're not that far apart in age, but there's a world of difference in strength. I can already enter the Tyrant Dragon mode, but you're really pathetic. Hyodo Issei, a nobody like you is my enemy? This is really boring. Wally said in a compassionate tone. He was extremely arrogant and looked down on everyone else. It was as if he was at the top. It's necessary to create some pressure for you to catch up with me. Wally's tone suddenly became gloomy. If I suddenly kill your parents, your boring life will also be full. Hurry up. You bastard, if you dare to do that, I'll cut you into 1,000 pieces. Touching a person's reverse scale would result in death, and Hyodo Issei's reverse scale was undoubtedly his parents. Buzz buzz buzz. At the same time, Hyodo Issei's body exploded with unimaginable power. His demonic power surged and a solid emerald light swept out of his body. Get away from him. Sensing the unusual fluctuation of Hyodo Issei's demonic power, Dustless sternly warned the girls. Who's that guy? White Dragon Emperor Wally's gaze also fell on Dustless's head. He felt like he had seen this figure in silhouette before, but he couldn't remember where. However, this guy exploded with such powerful energy. There's an unexpected surprise. Wally's tone was filled with joy. He could feel that Hyodo Issei's aura was rapidly increasing. There was a huge difference between before and after. Could this guy be a pervert? I remember that he's not interested in women. Could he be gay? Dustless shivered and thought maliciously. In his heart, he had already categorized White Dragon Emperor Wally as a comrade. Chapter 1324. White Dragon Emperor Wally naturally did not know what Dustless was thinking. Otherwise, based on his personality, he would definitely fight to the death with Dustless in the end. An earth-shattering magical wave swept out of Hyuga Kazunari's body. His appearance gradually changed, and the emerald light that leaked out also started to change. It condensed into a solid armor that covered Hyuga Kazunari's body. It was impenetrable, domineering, and almost exactly the same as Might. His body exuded the aura of a dragon. Diske, this form is the so-called Forbidden Hand, right? It looks pretty good. Dustless nodded secretly. The current Hyuga Kazunari was dozens of times stronger than he was a few minutes ago, or even more. Ah, look, Harubian. This guy is indeed not ordinary. My blood is burning at the same frequency as his. White Dragon Emperor Wally said excitedly. His entire body was shaking. He was even more excited than if he had eaten drugs. These two are indeed a match made in heaven. Dustless touched his chin playfully. The way he looked at Hyuga Kazunari and White Dragon Emperor changed. There was a special feeling that he had never seen before, gay. This was something that Dustless had just discovered. He suddenly felt that the two of them were very compatible and gay was very suitable. Not bad. The people in the supernatural research lab nodded slightly. Although they were surprised by Hyuga Kazunari's sudden outburst, their emotions did not change much. Dustless had already defeated them, so they were slowly becoming immune to it. Hence, when they saw Hyuga Kazunari's outburst, they did not feel much. It was just a simple surprise. Hyuga Kazunari let out a roar that did not sound like a human's. Then he stomped his feet and rushed into the sky. Seeing this, White Dragon Emperor Wally was not afraid at all. He flapped his transparent wings, and the two of them collided with a speed that was beyond human comprehension. Bang, bang, bang. A huge rumbling sound spread out, spreading throughout the entire world. The energy fluctuations that erupted caused people to shudder. Puchi. A faint crisp sound came from the sky. Then a black shadow was smashed down, and a deep hole was dug in the ground. When he got closer, he saw that it was Issei Hyuga, whose face had been completely shattered. You're really weak and pathetic, City Lord. Dustless appeared beside Issei like a ghost, completely unaware of his presence. How did you get out? Even the White Dragon Emperor Wally, who was hovering in the sky, was stunned. He frowned as he looked at the smiling Dustless. What do you want? Are you here to watch me make a fool of myself? Pretty boy. At this moment he was like an enraged hound. Whoever provoked him, he would come up and bite them. TSK, I'm here to help you improve your strength. To be honest, I'm not happy with that big white lizard either. It thinks it's so great. Dustless curled his lips and said disdainfully. He really didn't like people like Wally who thought he was the boss. Lizard? How dare you? I'm the same as Arubian. You're insulting me. Dradeleg's soul, who was hidden in the artifact, complained. At the same time, the Red Dragon Emperor's gauntlet kept flashing as if it was protesting against Dustless. However, he ignored it and didn't even look at it. Help me improve my strength? Hearing this, Issei Hyuga stood up excitedly and almost kowtowed to Dustless. You said it. Don't regret it. Dustless sneered and leaned close to Issei Hyuga's ear and slowly explained the whole story. What did you say? Are you sure? That bastard wants to castrate me? He doesn't want me to be a man? Issei Hyuga was petrified after hearing this. His mouth was so wide open that it could fit a fist. He subconsciously touched the thing that would carry on his ancestral line. He didn't expect Wally to castrate him. An unprecedented unwillingness burst out, driving Issei Hyuga's will. His magic power increased to a new level. At the same time, his artifact was also beeping non-stop, increasing Issei Hyuga's strength. Of course. Let me tell you, castrating you isn't the worst. That guy is a pervert. He came up with a lot of crazy ways to torture you. Dustless continued to talk nonsense. Issei Hyuga's power increased exponentially with every word he said. Wally plans to gouge out your eyes after capturing you alive so that you can never see Appa clearly. Then he plans to cut off your arms and legs and then, damn Wally! Issei Hyuga's magic power exploded like never before. The impact of the explosion burned everything around him. Everything that could be burned was set ablaze, and everything that couldn't be burned was turned into scorched earth. After being provoked by Dustless, Issei Hyuga's aura and hatred for White Dragon Emperor Wally reached a shocking level. He hadn't even built a harem yet, and Wally was going to castrate him mercilessly. Even his arms, legs and eyes were going to be gouged out. How vicious was this plan? Issei Hyuga's mind was filled with strong resentment. He hated Wally so much that he couldn't compromise. Otherwise, a very important part of his body would be swept into the trash. Therefore, with his strong will, Issei Hyuga's magic power was even stronger than White Dragon Emperor Wally's. I can't be castrated, I can't have my eyes gouged out, and I can't have my arms and legs cut off. I still want to conquer Appa. I still want to learn from Dustless and build a huge harem and live a drunken life. Issei Hyuga's eyes were like torches. In order to protect this dream, he was willing to give it his all. Chapter 1325. Boundless mana erupted, and Hyoto Issei looked like a primordial being that had just woken up. There was no end to the energy wave that erupted from his body, and even Dustless was forced to retreat. Hyoto Issei was burning with green light, and the scene was terrifying. Everything that got close to him was turned into dust. Ah, this is going to be fun. Dustless's lips curled up slightly, and then he sat down on the ground and looked like he was going to enjoy the show. How is this possible? That kid just said a few words and this idiot exploded? What kind of freak is he? White Dragon Emperor Wally sensed the energy wave that was overflowing from Hyoto Issei's body. His tone was unstable and his body was shaking. The energy wave that erupted from Hyoto Issei's body was even stronger than his current state. I heard that you have never been beaten up before. Today I will let you experience what it feels like to be beaten up by someone. Stupid White Dragon Emperor. Dustless glanced at White Dragon Emperor Wally, and then raised his arm and shouted, Issei-kun, in order to not be castrated, in order to not have your eyes and limbs dug out, use all your power and defeat this jinx in one fell swoop, and build your own harem camp. When he mentioned the word harem, Hyoto Issei was as excited as if he was injected with chicken blood. He stomped his feet on the ground and shot into the sky like a cannonball. Boom, boom, boom. Hyoto Issei was like a rocket, and his feet were emitting high-density energy waves as he shot into the sky. White Dragon Emperor is going to be unlucky this time. Dustless kept loosening his shoulders, and the smirk on his face became even more obvious. You, Riaz and the other girls looked at Dustless speechlessly, and then they looked at each other and did not know whether to laugh or cry. They did not know whether this Hyoto Issei was too naive or too stupid. Anyone could tell that Dustless's words were all made up to provoke Hyoto Issei. Bang, bang, bang. At the same time, two figures, one red and one white, were fighting fiercely in the sky, and the result of the battle was quite clear. Hyoto Issei, who had unleashed his little universe, was as ferocious as if he was on drugs, and he grabbed White Dragon Emperor and beat him up. You want to castrate me and destroy my harem dreams? Hyoto Issei grabbed White Dragon Emperor Wally's neck, and his eyes blazing, and he shouted, Then I'll beat you until you can't take care of yourself. The more Hyodo Issei spoke, the more excited he became. The Red Dragon Emperor's feedback was getting stronger and stronger. White Dragon Emperor Wally felt like he was being beaten up like a little kid. Boom, boom. Issei's aura was still rising. He clenched his right fist and punched White Dragon Emperor Wally's head mercilessly. Crack. He didn't even have the time to spread his wings and absorb the attack. The divine armor that covered his head was destroyed by the ferocious Hyuga Issei. And Issei heated to Issei. You're really something. You managed to fool Hyodo Issei with just a few words. Rias attacked from behind and hugged Dustless tightly from behind. The billowing snowball was also squashed and turned into an oval-shaped meat patty. Dustless's mind was stirred up, and he closed his eyes to enjoy it for a while. You bastard, you said you were willing and now I'm in such a sorry state. What kind of magic potion did you feed him? How can a piece of trash have such powerful combat power? White Dragon Emperor Wally, who was spitting out blood, gritted his teeth and touched his mouth, which was already sunken in. He was shocked by Hyodo Issei's combat power. This is all your fault. Wally glared at Dustless with endless murderous intent. Dustless had made him suffer this time. White Dragon Emperor Wally's invincible legend was trampled on by a piece of trash. And the culprit was this young man in front of him who looked similar to him on the surface. Who the hell are you? Tell me your name. White Dragon Emperor Wally questioned, even ignoring Hyodo Issei who was beside him. I'm just a nameless junior. Dustless smiled and bowed slightly to introduce himself. My name is Dustless, please take care of me in the future. Hearing this he frowned slightly. He was sure that he had heard this name before, but because he was too annoyed he could not remember it. He's the one who killed your subordinate in one move, Wally. White Dragon Emperor's voice spread out, and it was filled with surprise. I see. No wonder I felt that you were familiar. It seems that Beautiful Monkey and Black Song were defeated by you. White Dragon Emperor Wally was full of fighting spirit. Compared to Hyodo Issei's moment of brilliance, he wanted to challenge the mysterious Dustless more. Get up and fight with me. White Dragon Emperor Wally said excitedly. His broken mech was repaired perfectly again. Let's forget about it. Hearing this, Wu Qin shook his head decisively. He glanced at White Dragon Emperor Wally with pity and said softly, You are not even as good as the little brother that I created at the last minute. Don't you think that your idea is too funny and ridiculous to fight one-on-one with me? Dustless mocked. He cared about the infinite dragon god Orpheus. As for White Dragon Emperor Wally, no matter when it started, Dustless never regarded him as an opponent. Are you looking down on me? White Dragon Emperor Wally clenched his fist angrily, and his tone was obviously low, filled with indescribable ominous feeling. I'm not looking down on you. Our starting line is not the same. You're too far away. Gently glancing at White Dragon Emperor Wally, Dustless turned around and left with the girls. Don't even think about leaving. White Dragon Emperor Wally did not give up. He flapped his wings and swept out like lightning. Chapter 1326. A dense storm came from behind. Dustless suddenly felt as if he was locked on by the claws of an eagle and the eyes of an eagle, wanting to devour him. Stupid thing, do you really think you are invincible? Wu Qin stopped and turned his head to reveal half of his face. Wu Qin turned a deaf ear to White Dragon Emperor Wally who was galloping toward him. He only gave a simple summary of the situation. What a self-righteous and arrogant young man. Little did he know that in this world where gods were everywhere, he was now just a very common existence, just like Dustless's former third brother, Uchiha Sasuke. Although he had high potential, he was now just a tiny grain of sand. Come here, don't even think about leaving. White Dragon Emperor's speed was extraordinary. His big hand covered with silver armor grabbed Dustless's head. Poochie. With a gentle grab, Dustless's head shattered and turned into bursts of photons. What's going on? White Dragon Emperor Wally felt incredible and his tone was full of shock. This is one of my thousands of abilities, elemental transformation. Dustless calmly told him everything to satisfy White Dragon Emperor's curiosity. No matter what you understand, I have to tell you, with your strength, let alone defeating me, you can't even touch my body. You look down on me? White Dragon Emperor Wally asked in a hoarse voice. His tone was full of anger and anger. Whoosh. At the same time he didn't believe it and attacked again, turning into a storm and rushing toward Dustless. Boom. A heavy punch fell and Dustless's abdomen collapsed again. However, what made Wally depressed was that Dustless himself was not hurt at all, and there was always a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. silently mocking him for overestimating himself. Facing dustless, white dragon Emperor Wally had a strange feeling in his heart. This was the most tragic thing in the world. The enemy was right in front of you, but even if you exhausted all your means, you couldn't shake him at all. Not to mention fighting with the enemy, even touching his body was as difficult as ascending to the sky. Do you only know how to use despicable tricks? White Dragon Emperor Wally had nowhere to vent his anger. He could only lose control of his emotions and yell, "It seems that you are just a small character. You have failed to live up to my expectations of you." Helpless, he could only provoke Dustless verbally, who asked him to be so heaven-defying. However, Dustless was unmoved. He gave him a look of pity and turned around to walk away. "You forced me to do this." The White Dragon Emperor's sinister gaze circled around Rias and the others. A look of savagery flashed across his eyes. "I heard that Rias Gimli is your fiancé. If I'm not wrong, she shouldn't have the ability to avoid physical attacks." After saying that, White Dragon Emperor Wally looked at Dustless with a confident smile. "You," as expected, Dustless leisurely stopped as a cold killing intent appeared in his calm eyes. "Don't try to anger me. The price is not something you can bear." White Dragon Emperor Wally smiled and said casually, "I heard from my subordinates that you have the same goal as me. No, you have a goal that is even more resentful than me. You want to capture the real Red Dragon Emperor, the Great Red, as a means of transportation. I don't even have such a crazy idea." Hearing that, Dustless suddenly understood what White Dragon Emperor Wally was thinking. He said indifferently, "If you can't do it, it doesn't mean that others can't do it. Or, you think that my idea is too ridiculous and want to test my strength?" Wu Chen asked expressionlessly. He finally understood Wally's purpose. Suddenly, a person who was even more arrogant than him had appeared. Wally was probably unhappy and wanted to test him. "That's right. I just want to see what kind of person you are." White Dragon Emperor Wally was full of battle intent. He was not afraid that Dustless would not agree to his condition. He continued, "You can reject me, but I will attack your companions." After saying that, White Dragon Emperor Wally turned into a storm and swept over. He stared at the girls with a vicious gaze and finally, his gaze landed on Isha's head. He seemed to think that she was too young and did not have the strength. This way he could better force Dustless to fight with him. "I choose you." With a flap of his wings, White Dragon Emperor Wally's speed reached the limit. Under the black night sky, his silver armor was extremely eye-catching. "Ah!" Isha screamed in horror and could not help but take a step back with fear on her face. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At the same time, a black shadow quickly came up and blocked Isha's path like a wall. "Haha, you fell for it." Seeing that, White Dragon Emperor Wally was overjoyed. He gathered a majestic force in his right arm and smashed it mercilessly at the black shadow. This time, White Dragon Emperor Wally was not worried that Dustless would escape. Once he used a move that ignored the attack to dodge, Isha, who was behind him, would definitely be severely injured. She might even die. Therefore, Wally judged that Dustless would take his punch. Bang bang bang. As expected, Dustless did not dodge in the end. Instead, he used his own flesh and blood to take the punch of White Dragon Emperor Wally. Boom boom boom. The deafening roar resounded through the dark night sky. Everyone looked at Dustless in shock. They saw White Dragon Emperor Wally's punch hit Dustless directly. However, it was as if nothing had happened to him. He stood there unscathed, unmoving and unwavering. How is this possible? Nothing happened at all? Wally's surprised tone spread and he subconsciously retracted his fist. His right hand that hit Dustless felt a little pain as if he had hit a meteorite. Dustless did not react at all. Instead, his palm was sore. At the same time, Dustless's form also changed dramatically. His whole body turned into a dark monster. Under the moonlight, it reflected a cold light. He entered the state of armament hockey. Chapter 1327. White Dragon Emperor Wally was shocked, and his calm eyes rolled up. He didn't know why, facing Dustless in such a state, he suddenly regretted it. Specifically, he didn't know. In short, it was a simple word: regret. If I remember correctly, you should be 20 years old this year. Logically speaking, I shouldn't lower myself to your level, but you, this problem child, don't seem to appreciate it. You don't know what's good for you and want a yard after getting an inch. Wu Chen's eyes were filled with monstrous killing intent. He had experienced several worlds and was an out-and-out monster who was hundreds of years old. He didn't intend to bully him. However, this kid didn't know when to back down and asked for a beating. Don't you want to witness my strength? Now I've changed my mind. Open your dog eyes and see it clearly. As his voice fell, Dustless's body merged into the darkness, disappearing with a swoosh. Where did he go? White Dragon Emperor Wally quickly looked around. It was the first time he had seen such an abnormal movement speed, which coincided with the fleeting speed of light. Idiot, behind you. Mockery sounded behind him, and White Dragon Emperor Wally quickly turned his head and greeted him with a dark iron fist. Boom. The fist covered with armament hockey was invincible, and under the brutal and powerful attack, White Dragon Emperor Wally suddenly disappeared. Boom boom boom. On the wall 100 meters away, Wally was deeply trapped in it, and the artifact covering his face was broken again. Not only that, but his right face was still red and swollen. Wally, I have a bad feeling. That guy is not right. White Dragon Emperor Arubian's cautious voice suddenly came. Through a series of previous observations, he came to a terrible conclusion. This guy is incredibly strong. Maybe this time we really opened Pandora's box and released an incredible guy. I see. Wally stood up with difficulty. His handsome face was gloomy and he said in a hoarse voice, no wonder Orpheus wants to join forces with him. But I can't accept it. Staring at Dustless resolutely, Wally's eyes were as sharp as a knife, full of vigor. It's not shameful to lose, but I can't accept being defeated like this. At the very least, I have to use my full strength to fight him. Even if I lose, I'll be willing to accept it. The broken artifact healed again, and Varley returned to his previous state. Sigh, we're probably going to be in trouble together this time. White Dragon Emperor Arubian let out a long sigh. If Wally was beaten up, he would also be unlucky. Therefore he could only do his best to help Wally. And as Wally said, it would be too cowardly if he threw away his armor and surrendered without even fighting. Especially when his nemesis, the Red Dragon Emperor D-Leg, was watching. Swish, swish. With a flap of his wings, Wally, who had put on his artifact again, whizzed over. He clenched his fist and punched. What's the use of such a weak fist? Raising his eyelids, Dustless glanced at Wally, who was full of fighting spirit. He felt like he was bullying a child. Feeling bored, he gave up on fighting back and signaled Wally to attack. Bang, bang, bang. A series of punches landed on Dustless. He was like a punching bag. He didn't fight back and just stood there motionless. Wally's punches landed on him, and there was only a boom 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 sound. Meanwhile, Dustless himself was unharmed. He just looked at the crazy Wally with pity. Boom boom boom. The punches were still raining down. Dustless just stood there motionless, allowing Wally to fight back. Gulp. This unprecedented scene shocked everyone. Whether it was Riaz, Sangna, or Hyoto Issei and his artifact, the Red Dragon Emperor, they were all deeply shocked. Dustless, who was being attacked, looked calm. The attacks that landed on his body were like continuous rain. He didn't feel anything at all. How is this possible? How can there be someone in this world who can take so many hits? The Red Dragon Emperor, D-Leg, shouted in disbelief. He and the White Dragon Emperor were the two heavenly dragons. Their strength could be ranked in the top 10 in this world. Even if Wally couldn't unleash the full strength of the White Dragon Emperor, he shouldn't be so powerless. Dustless just stood there and let him hit him. He couldn't even move. There was no reaction at all. Ah! As if he was deeply affected, Wally suddenly roared at the sky. His tone was filled with endless anger. He then turned into a divine rainbow and flew into the sky. He released all the energy stored in his wings. His strength was always at its peak. Because Wally released too much energy, the originally dark night suddenly became extremely bright. Everyone smelled danger. There was a voice in their hearts that urged them to run. Wally uncharacteristically reached out his palm and clenched it into a fist. He shouted, "White Dragon Emperor's territory." Buzz buzz buzz. It was as if the end of the world had suddenly arrived. The void was distorting at a speed visible to the naked eye. Energy ripples floated out from Wally's hand. Everything that came into contact with it was reduced in size by half. Partner, retreat quickly. He's distorting this space. We might suffer as well. As the White Dragon Emperor's archenemy, D-Leg knew all of his moves like the back of his hand. What? All of them will be reduced in size by half. Hearing that, Hyoto Issei instinctively shrunk his legs. Dustless's words earlier had already left a shadow in his heart. What's wrong with my thing being reduced by half? Hyoto Issei thought angrily. Unknowingly, an earth-shattering energy wave exploded from his body. At the same time, a high-density energy wave also exploded from Dustless's body. Chapter 1328. After experiencing several worlds in succession, Dustless's strength had been tempered and reached the peak of perfection. Moreover, the current world was relatively low-end. Even if the deities were everywhere, and there were even people who had surpassed the deities, Dustless was not afraid at all. Boom, boom, boom. The power that had accumulated in his body for hundreds of years exploded and dispersed. The Chariot King Academy disappeared in an instant. The boundless tide of energy spread out, and the vast and endless horizon suddenly seemed to have been blown up by waves, one after another, stretching out for dozens of kilometers. Even the stars and the moon in the sky were covered by the waves. The distorted space instantly calmed down. Dustless did not even make a move. He used his own aura to suppress the gradually shrinking dimension, and everything returned to normal. What kind of power is this? White Dragon Emperor Wally opened his mouth and loosened his clenched fists. He was desperate. Although he had the ability to absorb other people's energy, Wally did not dare to act rashly at this moment. If he acted rashly, he was afraid that his body would explode from the scattered energy waves. Also, if he was swept by the majestic energy waves, he would have a feeling of kneeling down and submitting. It was extremely oppressive and domineering. Whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, a large number of photons floated from the sky and circled around White Dragon Emperor Wally's head. This is... He looked up at the light that shrouded his head in a daze. He had a bad feeling. Just as he was about to retreat, a golden light beam fell from the sky and locked onto him. Light speed kick. White Dragon Emperor Wally did not even have time to react before he was suppressed by a powerful force. Boom, boom, boom. He was mercilessly kicked down from a height of more than 10 meters. He was dizzy from the fall and almost fainted. Wally smashed a large deep hole in the ground. No, this guy is too scary. I only have a chance of winning if I enter the T-Rex mode. With this thought in mind, Wally was about to reveal his true appearance when he suddenly felt pain on his old face. Whoa whoa. Wally roared with all his might, but he realized that he could not speak. A huge foot sealed his face. Dustless looked down at White Dragon Emperor Wally with a deadly expression. He had trampled on his dignity and pride until they were worthless. He had used his overwhelming strength to severely injure Wally. He had displayed strength beyond the knowledge of living creatures. I advised you not to provoke me before. Do you regret it now? Woo woo woo. Wally protested loudly, but his face and mouth were stepped on by Dustless, so he couldn't speak at all. He could only whimper, looking extremely aggrieved. You don't have a good memory. Dustless aimed at Wally's eyes, and the latter immediately felt the aura of death. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. With a flick of his finger, a flash of light whizzed out. Just as it was about to pierce through Wally, a sudden change occurred. Bang bang bang. When the light was about to pierce through Varley, a black shadow rushed over. At the critical moment, a huge magic fluctuation burst out and snatched Varley from Dustless' hands. Boom boom boom. The beam missed its target and created a large crater in the ground. Victory and defeat have already been decided. There's no need to kill him. The shadow who saved Wally chuckled. He tried to remain natural, but his nerves were tense, and he was always on guard against Dustless. If I didn't kill you, you would continue to hide, Mr. Governor of the Fallen Angel, Athasiel. Dustless raised his head and looked at the middle-aged man in front of him. He had a vague understanding of him. This guy discovered me long ago? Athasiel's eyes widened, then he smiled bitterly and said to himself, Really, I thought this guy didn't discover me. It turns out that he deliberately killed me to force me out to save Wally. No wonder Corcobor's aura disappeared. He was probably killed by this guy. Athasiel guessed that the culprit must be Dustless. He had seen the battle with White Dragon Emperor clearly. The giant race mercilessly trampled on the dwarf race as easily as bullying the dwarf race. White Dragon Emperor Wally was like a clown, being played and beaten. Any attack was just asking for humiliation. Athasiel was even sure that if Dustless wanted to, this battle could end in the blink of an eye. Let's stop here. After all, he's still a hot-blooded young man, just a kid who hasn't grown up. Athasiel smiled and said in a sincere tone, indirectly admitting defeat for Wally. Although White Dragon Emperor Wally was unwilling, he still lowered his head. Just as Athasiel said, he was just a kid who hasn't grown up in front of Dustless. Even if the opponent is an insensible kid, it will still be very troublesome to provoke me often. Just don't do it again. Dustless said indifferently. He knew that Athasiel was pleading for mercy, so he didn't make it difficult for him. Sorry, I'll definitely pay you a visit when I'm free. Athasiel heaved a sigh of relief. Dustless was planning to let bygones be bygones. If they really fought, he had no chance of winning. Goodbye. Dustless glanced at Athasiel indifferently, then turned and left. Riaz and the other girls looked at each other and decisively followed. Who is that guy? He's so strong he shouldn't be unknown. White Dragon Emperor Wally smashed the ground hard. His expression was filled with annoyance and unwillingness. Being beaten up by Dustless made him feel extremely uncomfortable. His whole body was burning up. God knows who he is, but fortunately he's not our enemy. Wiping away the cold sweat on his forehead, Aesir smiled in relief. I keep having the feeling that going against that guy is the same as going against God. An invulnerable enemy was a nightmare. I'm going back to train harder. Let me know when the three-party meeting starts. I'll definitely surpass him. As soon as he finished speaking, White Dragon Emperor Wally disappeared without a trace. Chapter 1329. In the blink of an eye, it was the morning of the next day. After yesterday's battle, everyone was exhausted. Dustless was no exception. He had been tortured by the White Dragon Emperor Wally. Woo woo woo, Dustless yawned lazily. Suddenly he realized that his body was heavy. He instinctively opened his tired eyes, and the scene that greeted him stunned him. Riaz, Aisha, and this girl with aqua blue hair. Genova? Dustless opened his eyes and was shocked to find that he was wrapped in 3 balls of flesh. Riaz was holding onto Dustless's left arm, while Aisha was holding onto his right arm. As for her legs, they were held tightly by Genova. Dustless could even feel her impressive cleavage. F***ck, what's going on? Dustless was petrified. He could understand Riaz and Aisha's actions, but why Genova? Dustless could not figure it out no matter how hard he scratched his head. Hee. After a while, Dustless's lips curled into a perverted smile. Since he could not figure it out, then he should not think about it. After all, he was not at a disadvantage, and the 3 beauties in front of him were already in his mouth. If he still stood there like an idiot, he would be letting down his heroic performance yesterday. Believing in the principle of not taking advantage of others, Dustless's hands began to move restlessly. You are my fiancé. Touching other women in front of me, have you considered my feelings? Dustless paused and turned his head. Riaz looked at him, her words filled with jealousy and jealousy. You are right, but shouldn't you fulfill your duty in advance? Dustless retracted his hands and pointed at the most important part of himself as a man. He said righteously, after yesterday's battle, I am very tired. He is even more tired. Riaz, fulfill your duty as his fiancé and reward him. Hearing that, Riaz's face turned as red as an apple. Definitely not. Riaz shook her head like a rattled drum. There was no room for compromise. Since you are not fulfilling your duty as his fiancé, then I have no need to follow your rules. I have been holding it in for a long time, and now I need to vent. After that, Dustless turned around and looked at Aisha's sleeping face. He waved his hands again. Just as he was about to reach Aisha, Riaz jumped out and interrupted him. No, I won't allow you to do that. Your first time must be mine. Riaz sat on Dustless's body and said resolutely with her hands on her hips. My first time? Hearing this, Wuxia laughed involuntarily. How many times had he given Riaz? But that's of the mind's eyes of it, of the world of course I'm. But eyes of the eyes, eye of the eye. Of the eye of the eyes of the eyes. Riaz scratched her head, looking like she was having a headache. She did not expect to be troubled by something like this. Riaz, why don't I remind you? Wuxia stared at Riaz's enchanting thin lips and said meaningfully, a stupid woman only has 1 mouth, but a smart woman has 3 mouths. This is why those smart women can keep men captive. 3 mouths? Hearing that, Riaz was stunned. Looking at Dustless's mysterious face, her eyes lit up. Are you saying? Dustless smiled but did not say anything. He only pointed at his mouth. You? Hearing that, Riaz's face turned red. She glared at Dustless angrily and asked, if I don't do that, what will you do? Do you even need to ask? Dustless rolled his eyes and said angrily, I'll definitely cheat on you. Staring fiercely at Wuxia, Riaz had no choice but to compromise. She looked at him with a complicated gaze and then sighed deeply. She might be able to take a good-for-nothing man for herself, but for a man who was the best in all aspects, Riaz felt pressured to monopolize him. In the end, Riaz could only follow Dustless's arrangement and drink all of Dustless's things. When she woke up in the afternoon, Riaz's jaw was no longer sensitive enough to speak. Speaking of which, I can understand Riaz and Aisha sleeping with me, but you? During lunch, Dustless looked at Genova in confusion. It's no big deal. Junai said there's no place to sleep, so I can only squeeze with you guys, Genova said to Dustless calmly as she chewed on her drumstick. You're not a demon anyway. Then Genova added, I don't mind, so why would you mind? Or are you afraid that I'll take advantage of you? You're right. Forget it. Facing Genova's answer and questioning, Dustless's mouth twitched. In the end, he could only wave his hand and let it go. Just as Genova said if she did not mind, then he had no reason to mind. I'll be staying here from now on. Genova suddenly said in a matter-of-fact tone, Lord Michael has given his permission, and Rena will also be staying here temporarily. Other than that, there's another big problem. Can you not be so sure? This is not your home. Dustless retorted and looked at Junai. After all, this was her home. However, Junai was smiling. Clearly she had passed the test. You guys didn't collude long ago, did you? Riaz also smiled mysteriously and appeared to be quite intimate. Dustless suddenly felt like he had been betrayed. Chapter 1330. Dustless did not know whether to laugh or cry at this. Aisha, Riaz, and Junai all looked natural. Needless to say, they had already guessed the news of Rena E and Genova moving in. Silver was the only one who was in the dark. Is this Michael's arrangement? Dustless asked with a frown as he locked onto Genova, who did not care about his image at all. He felt that something was amiss. Call him Lord Michael. Genova said unhappily with a straight face but still explained, it is indeed Lord Michael's idea. Our current strength is still lacking, so Lord Michael asked us to come out and train. It would be best if we could find a suitable powerhouse to be our master. As you know, Rena E and I are not familiar with this place, so we have no choice but to stay at Junai's place temporarily. Plus, you are a barely decent master, so we decided to stay here. Genova said as if everything was normal. He did not seem to care about Dustless's darkened face. Barely decent master? F***ck, are you looking down on me? Dustless stared at Genova gloomily before finally looking at Riaz. Although this was Junai's house, Junai would not allow someone from the church to stay here without Riaz's permission. Alright, it seems that the fallen angels, demons and angels will be having a tripartite peace talk recently. Dustless's eyes sparkled. He had almost forgotten about this. In that case, it was normal for Riaz to accept it. It would show the demon's sincerity. Hey, you sold me out without my permission. If you're so powerful, why don't you go to heaven? Dustless grabbed Riaz's clothes and questioned her softly. Heaven? Isn't that simple? Riaz was confused. She immediately revealed her black demonic wings and was about to fly. Stop playing dumb. You can be the master. I'm not interested in such a thankless task. Dustless saw that Riaz was just brushing him off, so he decided to be direct. Is that so? Hearing that, Riaz was extremely calm and composed. She was not worried about Dustless rejecting her at all. Instead, she moved her impressive figure closer to Dustless's side. He pointed at her rosy lips and said, It seems that you don't want to experience this morning's activity again? Gulp. Dustless choked on his sobs as his eyes shone with the light of a wolf. Even though it was his first time experiencing it, he could not find fault with Riaz's eloquence. No. Although I feel that it's not bad, it's too troublesome this time. I have to increase the stakes and change to another place. Suddenly thinking of something, Dustless changed his mind. Oh. Riaz's face was burning. Wuchen was hinting that she should use her second mouth. She still felt that she was too young and too young. Idiot, didn't I tell you before? Women have 3 mouths. Dustless made his intentions clear and said, I need your third mouth. That place, I've never tried it before, Riaz. Hearing that, Riaz's face turned red like an apple. She looked up and saw Dustless's eyes burning with fire. The scorching light almost melted Riaz. Whatever, it's going to be yours in the end anyway. I'll agree to it this time. But you have to focus on being their master. This is an agreement between a demon and an angel. You can't go back on your word. Riaz finally backed down and agreed to Dustless's shameless request. No problem, I promise to make them the best of the best. Dustless nodded confidently. Even though it was his first time coming into contact with the unfamiliar profession of master, he still had the intention to teach Genova and Wisteria Rena well. At night, the cold wind swept across the land. Dustless and Riaz huddled in the small house. Just as they were about to settle Riaz's matter, there were always a few disruptors. Buzz buzz buzz. Light flashed across the ground as magic surged and two figures appeared. Idiot, put on your clothes. Riaz hurriedly ordered with a straight face. It's Gilifia and Mother. Them? Hearing this, Dustless's eyes flashed with a playful luster. His originally quickened hands and feet slowed down instantly. He thought happily in his heart, my two little lovers are here. We're all on the same side. There's no need to stand on ceremony. We're all on the same side. Dustless shamelessly laid down. Not only that, he even pulled Riaz's clothes off. The energy of chakra in his palm shattered all of Riaz's clothes. Are you out of your mind? Riaz screamed. Just as she was about to pounce on Dustless and bite him to death, Riaz's mother's voice suddenly came. Riaz, you, Venerana's words stopped abruptly. Her eyes widened as she stared at Dustless and Riaz, especially when Riaz was still lying on top of Dustless, as if she was going to push Dustless down. Miss Riaz, you are too. Gilifia quickly turned her back to Dustless and Riaz, her hands sweating. She did not expect Riaz and Dustless to be having sex. Mother, Gilifia, please let me explain. Since we're all family, there's nothing to worry about. Riaz and I are going to take a bath. Do you two want to join us? Compared to Riaz, who was blushing and looking for a hole to crawl into, the thick-skinned Dustless was naturally much calmer. He calmly pulled Venerana and Gilifia to sit beside him. In the demon world, this kind of thing was actually very common. For example, men and women taking a bath together was almost universal, even if Dustless was just making it up. Chapter 1331. Hearing Dustless's explanation, Venerana and Gilifia let go of their resistance. Whether it was the demon realm, the real world where humans lived, or even the territory of the angels, it was common for men and women to bathe together. It was nothing to be surprised about. It was just a local custom. Alright then. I've been a little tired lately and I need to relax. Venerana was relieved as she winked at Dustless. After all, both of them had done it before. Bathing in the hot spring was no big deal. I know. Dustless chuckled and winked at Venerana. Well, how about? Thinking of Dustless's eccentric personality, Gilifia decisively refused. However, before she could finish her sentence, Dustless stood out and exposed her, making Gilifia feel depressed and anxious. I say, Ms. Gilifia, you're not giving face to Lias and Auntie. Is it wrong for you to bathe in the hot spring with them? With a smirk in his eyes, Wu Qin said in a strange tone. Hearing that, Gilifia opened her mouth but found herself speechless. As a servant of the Gimli family, she had to follow orders from above unconditionally. Even though she was Sazax's wife, she was still working. As the future son-in-law of the Gimli family, she had to call Dustless young master. I understand, Ms. Lias, Lady Venerana. Gilifia glared at Dustless before bowing to Lias and Venerana. I'll go prepare the things you need. Please wait for a moment. Having said that, Gilifia left without a trace, always wearing a professional expression. Gilifia really doesn't know how to have fun. She always looks at me like I'm a pervert. Dustless complained in his mind. He couldn't help but feel jealous of Sazax. He thought that even though he had taken Gilifia's body, he couldn't take her heart. Was a pity? In the small space, steam filled the air and a few figures could be seen in the smoke. This was a small hot spring in Junai's home. Dustless and the other three were squeezed together, sticking close to each other. Each of them only covered the important parts, so skin contact was unavoidable. Tisk tsk. Junai is so smart. I must have built this small place. Wu Qin hummed a song with a pleasant expression. His behavior was lazy. He looked as comfortable and relaxed as if he was smoking a big cigarette. He moved left and right, which was better than a living immortal. He was sandwiched between Gilifia and Venerana. Speaking of which, why did Gilifia and Auntie come to the human world? Wu Qin asked curiously, abandoning the strange emotions in his heart. The meat was right in front of his mouth and there was no need to fight for it. After all, they couldn't outrun Dustless, who could move at the speed of light. The three-way meeting between fallen angels, demons and angels is about to begin. The meeting location this time is Chariot King Academy, where you are. Gilifia and I came here to tell you to pay attention to some details. Be careful during this period. Someone like Korkabor might come out to cause trouble. Oh, is that so? That's all? Dustless asked with a smile. He looked at Riaz's mother, Venelana, with a "you know what I mean" expression. Is this kid the reincarnation of a pervert? Venelana was also a wily old fox. She naturally knew what Dustless's gaze meant. Little bastard, listen to me. Don't make me look bad. When we find a suitable place, I'll feed you. Venelana pinched Dustless's arm and whispered in a voice that only the two of them could hear. Don't worry, my lovely mother-in-law. I'll cooperate with the demons. If anyone dares to cause trouble, I'll beat them up until their own mother can't recognize them. Dustless returned the favor with a "don't worry, leave it to me" expression. But then again, this time the big shots from all over the world are gathered. The two demon kings from the demon realm, the governor of the fallen angels, Asashel, and even the archangel Michael will be here. Gilifia said with a myriad of emotions. Her tone was filled with respect. These were all people who could shatter heaven and earth with a snap of their fingers. All of them were the overlords of their own superpowers. They're just a bunch of arrogant scum. Sazak's wife is mine, and so is his sister. Seraphal is mine too. Her sister, Tsong, is mine too. Even the fallen angel Asashel doesn't dare to challenge me. The archangel Michael even gave his confidant to me as a disciple. He's most likely trying to rope me in. In the end, the most powerful person here is still me. Absolute power crushed everything. Because Dustless was powerful enough, everyone respected him and wanted to curry favor with him. Hence, there were endless benefits. That's not all. Only the demons, fallen angels, and archangels aren't complete. I remember there's also the Norse mythological system. Dustless went straight to the point. Venelana and Gilifia immediately looked at him in surprise. They did have such thoughts, but how did Dustless know? Could this kid really have the ability to see the future? With that thought, Venelana couldn't help but move closer to Dustless. They were soaking in a hot spring, so everyone wore very little. They only covered their important parts to prevent any leakage. Now, Riaz's mother, Venelana, suddenly moved closer and almost sat on Dustless's lap. Mother, if you keep squeezing him, this kid will be overjoyed. Riaz pouted, her eyes full of resentment. Chapter 1332. Dustless's eyes flashed with interest. There was something different about Riaz when she was acting like a little girl, and it made Dustless's heart skip a beat. Then I'll provoke you a little more. Dustless, who was bored, thought to himself. He had just dealt with the White Dragon Emperor Wali, and since he had nothing else to do, he might as well find some time to do something else. Dustless and Riaz's mother could read each other's mind, and they could see each other's teasing intentions from their faces. Ouch, it hurts. I sprained my ankle. Venerana suddenly cried out in pain and her face turned pale. Sprained your ankle? This unexpected turn of events stunned both Gilifia and Riaz. Gilifia rushed to Dustless's side and carefully picked up Venerana's foot. After looking at it carefully, she said worriedly, Lady Venerana's foot is indeed swollen. That's weird. Although Riaz did not say much, she was still suspicious and distrustful. Her stern gaze swept over Venelana and Dustless. She felt that something was wrong. Spraining your ankle in the water? This was the first time Riaz had heard of such a weird excuse. But Dustless's face was full of worry, and Venerana's face was pale from the pain. It did not look like an act. It's just a small matter, and it'll be a big problem if it's delayed for too long. Lady Venerana is of noble status and she can't get hurt. Is there any potion or medicine that can be used? Gilifia looked at Riaz and Dustless for help, but they both shook their heads. Ahem, Gilifia and I will go buy some. Riaz will stay here to take care of Lady Auntie. After clearing his throat, Dustless said righteously. He looked at Gilifia's delicate body and his heart itched. It was very uncomfortable. I object. I object. Riaz and Gilifia refuted Dustless's suggestion at the same time as if they had an agreement. I'm more familiar with this town than you are. Leave it to me and Gilifia. You stay here and watch out for Lady Mother. Riaz's tone was cautious and warning. All right then. Hearing that, Dustless, who was in high spirits, fell from the clouds into the ravine. Riaz could not help but laugh when she saw that. She skipped and left with Gilifia. Hee, little girl, you want to fight with me? That's called advancing in order to retreat. With that little bit of skill of yours, if you want to exchange blows with me, it would be 3,000 years too early. After noticing that Riaz left, Dustless's face changed. Thud. Wuchen walked in front of Venelana with an evil smile on his face. He grabbed her neck and squeezed her to the corner of the wall. When her breathing changed, he deliberately asked angrily, Your daughter ruined my attempt to strike up a conversation. Tell me, how should I punish you? You can do whatever you want with me. Venelana's eyes were like silk, and her coquettish voice contained electricity. Dustless's body went limp with her. What a bewitching seductress, Dustless mumbled to himself. He was really afraid that he would not be able to suppress himself and would be devoured by this demon. The lifespan of a demon was almost infinite. Even though Venelana was already a grandmother, she was still able to turn the world upside down. Rather than saying that she was Rias Muchin, it would be more appropriate to say that she was her sister. Most importantly, Venelana was a mature poppy. In terms of being a woman, she was far more mature than the young Rias. Venelana's smile and movements were extremely moving. Her pure water eyes made people unable to shift their gazes away from her. Tiske, you said that I can do anything to you, right? Dustless's wicked knife circled around Venelana's peerless body. She suddenly felt that those things in the past were really old. It was time to play some new tricks. I need to pee. This place is not suitable. Junai's nose is very sensitive. If I pee he will definitely find me. Dustless pretended to be in a difficult position, but he was actually looking at Riaz's mother with a perverted expression. That's troublesome. Hearing that, Venelana blinked. She naturally understood what he meant. She then took the initiative to stand in front of Dustless. She opened her mouth slightly, and an orchid fragrance came out of it. If you don't mind, just like before, please pee all over here. Hearing that, Dustless could not help but suspect that Riaz's father was definitely not good in a certain aspect. Otherwise, Venelana would not be so crazy. She would not reject any of Dustless's requests. Thank you for your hospitality. I won't hold back then. Since Venelana took the initiative to come to him, Dustless naturally would not hold back. After aiming at her thin lips, he completely turned into a demon king at that moment. Since Riaz and the others always called him the reincarnation of the sex god, Dustless would be a competent sex god this time. My cute mother-in-law, how does it taste? After a while, Dustless's face was full of naughty smiles. This was not the first time. He did not feel much when he did it. After all, living creatures were creatures of habit. Cough, cough, cough. Venelana looked at Dustless with a reproachful look. Her throat was very choked. Just as she was about to rest for a while, she was held down by Dustless and could not move. Then, Venelana suddenly felt that it was much heavier. Let's play a game of horse riding. My cute mother-in-law, please ride the horse. Dustless smiled naughtily. At the same time, he used all his strength to pat Venelana's butt. Instantly, a few deep red palm prints were left. It was so painful that her face changed slightly, but she endured it. Chapter 1333. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, a week had passed. At this moment, in the Supernatural Research Lab in the Chariot King Academy. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Ripples of light rose from the ground and a magic array appeared. A handsome man with long red hair and clad in armor slowly emerged from the magic array. Lord Syzax. All the family members in the room bowed slightly, their faces full of respect. Really, why did you drag me into this kind of situation? Dustless lowered his head and groaned in protest. He did not have time to play games with Syzax here, especially with this kind of identity game. Dustless, whose status was not as high as Syzax, could only bow and scrape. It's not a big deal. I'll just take it back from your mother with interest later. Dustless thought happily. In the past few days he had turned Venelana into a high-end saintess in front of people, and an extremely lewd slut in secret. Venelana would do anything Dustless asked for by Dustless. Of course, it was not without a price. During this period, Dustless gave Venelana a Logia devil fruit, which made her happy. Dustless fought with Dustless for a day and a night until she completely collapsed and fainted. Only then did Dustless stop. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Immediately after, the magic circle that Syzax stepped out of flashed with a dazzling light, and a beautiful girl with a ponytail and fair skin rushed out. Seraphil? God has been kind to me, and I'm destined to enjoy the happiness of having multiple partners. The appearance of one of the demon lords, Leviathan Seraphil, made Dustless's heart tremble. Her short, but curvy body made Dustless unable to stop himself. Just you wait. Sooner or later I'll make you pay back double for sure. As if noticing Dustless's attention, Seraphil suddenly turned her head and snorted coldly. She would not let go of the grudge of having her virginity forcibly taken by Dustless. Absolutely not. This little girl is very vengeful. Dustless awkwardly rubbed his nose and tactfully retracted his gaze from Seraphil. Lias. His gaze passed through the crowd and finally landed on Riaz and Dustless beside her. He said with great satisfaction, "Well done, a fallen angel of Korkabor's level as expected of my sister." Well actually, after Sazak said that, Riaz immediately became bashful and embarrassed. The person who killed Cockbur was actually Dustless. Riaz's words caused an uproar among the crowd. Everyone stared at the skinny, slightly hunchbacked young man beside her, dumbfounded. "If he's the one who killed Korkabor, I believe it," Leviathan Raffles, one of the Demon Kings, said in a cunning tone. "What does this little girl mean? She must be up to something. She wouldn't help me for no reason." Not only was Dustless not happy, but he also began to think about Seraphal's intentions. The weasel is up to no good. Let's be on guard for now. Unable to think of anything, Dustless calmed down. It was just a Demon King, nothing to worry about. At the same time, the sky outside underwent an unimaginable change. A large number of demons and other foreign species, including angels and fallen angels, gathered in the sky. It was not hard to see that this meeting was very serious. Buzz buzz buzz. In the Supernatural Department's research lab, flashes of light flashed again, and then two teams with completely opposite auras appeared. If one side was a crow immersed in darkness, the other side was a holy and bright divine bird, opposing each other. They belonged to the fallen angels and the angels respectively. The fallen angels were Athasiel and the White Dragon Emperor Wali. The other group of outsiders was the angels led by the Archangel Michael. Although their auras were completely different, both sides had smiles on their faces. On the surface they seemed to be very sincere. To choose such a place for a solemn meeting, I feel that the demons are not sincere. Athasiel casually chose a place to sit down, as friendly and easygoing as if he was in his own home. He did not treat Dustless as an outsider at all. His skin was so thick that even Dustless was impressed. The White Dragon Emperor, who was his follower and could barely be considered a bodyguard, crossed his arms in front of him and leaned against the wall silently. His gaze was fixed on Dustless and Hugh de Isse from time to time. These two had brought him shame, so he had to remember it and settle the score with them in the future. "Your Excellency, I think before you accuse others, you should sit down and explain your actions. Not only did Korkabor steal the holy sword of our church, but he also almost started this war. Don't the fallen angels owe an explanation?" Before Sazax could speak, Archangel Michael asked in a sharp and cunning tone. Upon hearing that, everyone's eyes were focused on Athashel's head, including the Demon King Sazax and Seraph. What should be explained must be explained clearly. Actually, I also want to ask why the fallen angels sent the fallen angel Rena Lee to kill me. Dustless also took advantage of the chaos to stir up trouble. His eyes were like torches as he looked at Asa Shur. When he had just arrived, this guy was probably the one who had sent Lena to assassinate him. Now, Dustless naturally had to ask why. "You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."